you all for coming today. Today's panel is a film panel discussion. And there were a couple questions that I wanted to address with this. There has been talk about a box office implosion by Steven Spielberg. First he said it, and then George Lucas kind of backed him up on it. They think that there is a lot of the 200 million plus movies are going to be made, and then they're going to hit the box office and not make back any money. They think it's going to forever alter the industry. They think it's going to make ticket prices higher. They think it's going to make ticket prices higher at the actual box office and things like that. So what we're here for is we're going to discuss some of that. I have a nice little panel here. We have Tim Gross is a horror reviewer. He also has just done Jagoff Massacre.
Which I just like to say before we go on, I'd like everybody to make sure they thank Chris for allowing us to even have this inside of the bookstore.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, Chris is awesome.
And I'm going to lock that door for you, too.
Okay, and then we have Amy Lynn Best. Now, she's a long-term. She's been doing film with Happy Cloud Pictures, and she's also an actress. We also have Jason Swinchock. He's an entertainer. He has done a Chemical Skyline and a lot of various other comedies and things like that. Just some really good stuff. We have Donald Ribarchak. He's an actor here, and he's done a great deal of work as well. So we have a nice little blend here. I'm an author, and I like to do like panels that have intellectual stimulation and things like that. So what we're going to do first is we'll just go down and let everyone introduce themselves a little bit more, and then I'll get into the questions.
By some chance you don't know who I am. Name is Tim Gross. I write movie reviews called Gross Movie Reviews. Try to keep them entertaining and short. More than anything, the best way to describe it, if you remember the stores that had VHS tapes, any movie had dust on it, I've pretty much seen that movie. Like I said, I watch a lot of bad movies, but I also am a big person into independent film. Love independent horror films. Anything it's sent to me, I will sit down and watch it, no matter how bad it is. But word has gotten around just from my name alone. I've had independent films from New Zealand, Russia, Germany. My books have sold in 5 different countries now, even though I really haven't made a lot of money off the books. But they have sold all over the world at some point, which is awesome, just for the mere fact that it's happened. But just recently, as Christine was saying, I'm lumped in with filmmakers. Don't get that impression. I just make movies that have fun. I'm not a filmmaker. I'm not professional like Amy or Jason here. I'm just some guy that likes to make a movie called Jagoff Massacre, and that's pretty much about it. You know, unless you want to talk Charles Band, then I'll talk about Charles Band all day.
I'm just going to give you Charlie's phone number. You can talk to him all day.
He'd probably be scared.
2460.
Okay, Amy.
Amy Lynn Best. Christine's going to give you a nice little round. We've been making movies for 15 years or so now. Do a little bit of writing for some publications. I co-founded a website for women in horror, and it's a nice little thing.
Jason.
My name is Jason. I'm shy. Next. I film stuff sometimes. Me and I have a group of friends that we started off in a ton of different directions. We still really don't even know what we do. If there's something out there in film that we think is interesting or funny or scary or anything, we put the cameras to it and see what we can come up with. We say we try to find the magic in everything we do, and that's kind of our goal. I've worked with Dawn before. That was the lead into Dawn.
My name is Dawn Ribarchak, and I consider myself a part-time actor. I have a real job for during the day, and I use acting as a hobby. Sometimes I actually get paid a little bit, stipend for movies, but most of my work is with students of universities in Pittsburgh and so forth. And, I work with independent producers and directors, and they actually feature films that hopefully will someday be on the market. Yes, I did work with Jason. He did a great job. Twice together. Once he was my partner. I don't work predominantly in horror films. I work in whatever is available for an older gentleman that looks my part, which is usually the dad, police officer, detective, that type of stuff. So, and a drunk.
One of your.
Which I don't have to ask too often, but that's pretty much my resume.
All right, and again, I'm Christine Soltis. I have a company called SolsticeNightSky Productions. It's newly startup. So I kind of like to do these panels and things. I've been writing for 10 years. I've written 20 books so far. I've done some acting. I actually was in that one there at Chemical Skyline. I did get to do a part in Los Angeles for a nationally syndicated show. It's Justice for All with Judge Machine Regrets. I was getting sued for a paint job gone wrong. But that's the extent of my film really is at the acting point, and then like writing screenplays or writing books and things like that. So what we're going to do, I guess we'll move on to the first question. I only have 3 here because then I figured we'll go through these 3 questions, then we can have kind of like a free-for-all and ask questions and things like that in place. Okay, now the biggest question comes first. We'll start with Tim. Do you anticipate the box office implosion will come to fruition? And if so, do you think that will have any effect on any indie filmmakers who are trying to reach the box office level?
I don't know about the implosion, but I think it's already affected independent filmmakers in general. In my opinion, ever since Reservoir Dogs got out there, that was like the end of real independent filmmaking that mainstream did. I felt they put up a barrier between what you consider independent filmmakers these days and Hollywood, because it just doesn't happen anymore these days. I mean, Blair Witch Project was a shot in the dark, and they figured out how to use the internet before anybody used the internet. But outside of that, you don't know anyone that has gotten through there unless they've gone through other means, meaning like they knew somebody in the business,
Yep.
you know? And that is the only way you're able to do it. It's put up such a wall that it's literally like watching 2 different markets now. There's the Hollywood market, and then there's the independent filmmakers market. But in reality, and a lot of people in the mainstream, you know, your general viewers, there isn't a such thing as independent, just because Cannes Film Festival and all those film festivals in the past decades used to be a haven for independent filmmakers. It's all bought out by Hollywood anymore. And if you want to watch basically independent filmmaking, you got to go outside of the country. Even though there's a great swell of independent filmmakers. I mean, in the room, you have Amy and Mike and Jason here. Just very talented individuals. But not only that, you could go to any horror movie convention there is around the country, and there's just tons of independent filmmakers. Now, whether they make it somewhere or not is a whole different story. Just because I feel there's such a wall there, you have literally, you're better off going somewhere else than Hollywood in order to have your film get out there. But the implosion, could it happen? Yeah, but I feel as long as there's kids in the world, and as long as Disney has its way of making Cars 2 and every other stupid goddamn cartoon movie that's out there, you know, outside of Despicable Me and a couple of things, you know, movies along that with DreamWorks, as long as there's kids, the movies are always going to make a ton of money. Now, it could affect other movies. I mean, implosion, I think it's already happening, where a lot of projects that would have been greenlit even 5 years ago, it's not happening. It just seems very, very, like, cookie cutout. There's not many movies come out into theaters that you do not expect to see in the theaters to begin with. You don't get I mean, the gentleman wearing the John Dies at the end t-shirt, a perfect example. I feel it's one of the best movies of the year. Does it deserve a full release out in the theaters? Oh yeah. Did it ever get one? No. And movies like John Dies at the End are never going to anymore. You're never going to see weird movies anymore. It's the 80s, the early 90s, that's over. And none of that stuff is ever going to make it in the theaters anymore. It's just too controlled. So, like I said, could there be an implosion? Yeah, but I just feel as long as people keep having kids and reproducing, Disney is going to make the market.
Yeah. Okay.
Except at the Hollywood, we'll see the movies there.
Something I was going to put out there too, because maybe there will be the film implosion, but there may be, I'm seeing it as a differentiation in the market, because they're like thinking of the movie Elysium. There's the rich who live in right here and going, and I hate to say the rich going to the movies is an occasion, but when movies first started back in the 1900s and the 1920s, it was a big deal to go to the theater. That's where you paid the money, that's where you expected the entertainment. Movies, that was fluff. And the way you're talking, it sounds like that's what's eventually gonna happen.
I get on it,
It's gonna
yeah.
separate like that. There's gonna be the movies,
Yeah.
and then there'll be the stuff that's the general entertainment, and that's what's gonna set the tone.
I think, I honestly believe there's a reason Netflix fills up its cube with a bunch of independent films
Right.
out there. Why, I thought a couple years ago when an economy started going down and just everybody was basically closing down shop on distributing independent films. I mean, even Asylum Entertainment, they're seeing better days than they ever have with Sci-Fi Channel.
Sure.
It just, because of Netflix and
Well,
just
that's-
these other on-demand things.
The other
is-
ones that are coming in,
that's what they're saying is
Amazon
that-
and
Yeah, it is
Hulu
stretching
Plus
it out.
and all of that.
It is stretching it out, and it might be, like a lot of things anymore, it's becoming more disparity between classes anymore.
Yeah, there's someone who countered the box office implosion said that people were not going to care about big budget movies being on like Netflix because they do have all the other ones to stream. That is
Well,
truly
not even on Netflix, to be honest, it's gonna be stolen.
Yeah.
It's gonna be bootlegged out there, look how quickly it gets out there now. And I'll leave that for later, but, let
Okay.
everybody else speak, but, I mean, just look how quickly it gets out there
Yeah.
these days.
And along the same lines though, but then you have the studios that are controlling what goes on Netflix, and now you can't get anything with a special feature on it. They're completely controlling because they want more people, which then I think makes a lot of the people that I know, well, we're not gonna listen to that, let's turn around and we're just gonna bootleg it anyway. So they're creating a lot of their own problem. And one of the things that we were talking about last night with this implosion thing, it's kind of ironic in a way that you have Spielberg and Lucas, two of the kind of main causes.
Yeah.
It would have just been the best that Cameron would have jumped in there too, whining about it too, when they're the main reasons. Let's make these huge budget movies, and then whine when nothing's making money like it used to.
Yeah, they said that Lincoln almost became an HBO movie. Almost.
Which, yeah,
That's what they're claiming.
when Spielberg's the one that walks in and dictates
Yeah.
what rating he's going to get on a movie. I think those guys are the ones that caused it, not just them, but them in the studios and them calling themselves independent movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause-
Really annoying.
Yeah, because independent movies that are in Hollywood are not independent
Yeah,
movies.
they're
That was
not.
my
No,
point
they're
about
not.
Reservoir
Yeah.
Dogs.
Well,
I kind of ended that.
We'll talk to people about independent movies, or even when we were going through SAG and going through independent movies is anything under like what 10 million now.
Yeah, that's
You
just
know,
retarded.
we have a low budget movie.
I'll go for
Yeah.
that kind of a budget.
Mike was on the set of, was it Sorority Row? That was a low budget movie and it was
15 million.
15
Oh my
million,
God.
yeah, steak buffet. And,
Yeah, they had a steak buffet.
but it was an independent,
Most
low
of it was
budget
for
movie.
security in the north side. Or Manchester, as they like to call it.
But when you have a system that they created, and then I kind of think they're trying to just get more publicity about it too.
That's quite close.
I'm not going to be able to show my movies in the theaters, so
Yeah,
everybody
that
pay
is-
attention, and then they'll go to the movies.
So what the $2,000 to $5,000 bracket to the movies? Are they like co-movies or what?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. That's, oh yeah.
But the sad part is the home movies that you're saying between those budgets are actually because of the technology these days, especially in the past 5 years.
Yeah.
Look absolutely beautiful and look so much better. And just going back to the fact I don't even consider myself a filmmaker. for the love of God, I've made 2 movies now in the past 18 months. That should tell you something. There's something wrong with that if I can make movies.
You're making the same way William S. Burroughs wrote his books. You're just waking up one day going, what did I do last night?
Yeah, it's literally just, hey, I can do this. Why not? Let's do it.
Jason?
That was my thought.
I spent the better part of last week really reading about what Mr. Spielberg and George Lucas said, and I mean, not to take away anything. I mean, I don't ever knock anybody else's stuff. I think Spielberg and George have done like he's got to Star Wars. He's like, don't you dare say anything bad about it. I mean, I think that George Lucas, I mean, you know, I hold the original trilogy. I really do hold it holy in my life. However, and hey, 7's coming too. Yes, but I think George is really out of touch, and I think Steven Spielberg may be a little out of touch with really what is going on out there, especially with the younger guys in Hollywood. And I really don't think I heard a long time ago, and I don't know what truth this statement says, but there's 2 recession-proof businesses, and it's the mafia and it's Hollywood. And I always really thought that to be true, because in 2009, some people were talking about implosions and a crash in the box office when everything else was going wrong in the country. And you still have movies that come out that are still breaking records, like The Avengers. And I mean, I think movies, no matter how much money you're going to put into them, that's not guaranteed, and it's a business. I mean, Pacific Rim blew my mind when we watched it, and I'm like, this is going to make $1 jillion. And it really didn't. I don't even know if it broke budget around the world.
No, it didn't.
And which was really sad, because it was so, you know, such a, and that's just not our culture. I mean, you know, we don't understand, you know, we're not a big robot, big monster culture. And
Press
I
came out really hard on against it.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and I just
want to say
like,
something about Pacific Rim real quick.
Every chance.
Which
they
I
had.
just like to point out real quick. Pacific Rim is just a bigger budget robot jobs from
Yes.
Trump Band.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, you did.
And with the independent scene, it's going to constantly keep splitting up, I think. Eventually, Hollywood's direction is going to turn into, you know, who can we find as the new? And you have such a farm, if you want to call them farm teams now, of independents that, you know, I'm not one that bashes Hollywood. I mean, and we'll get to, I guess, the remake topic and all that. But technology certainly is one of the original things. Like you said, Tim. Geez, I made 2 movies in a year. You know, I mean, yeah. Like at first, you're like, holy cow, I can do. That was our original thing. Like we can do this. And you actually start doing it. And you're like, well, we better learn how to edit things. And then there's sound, and no one ever gets sound quite right. And it's like, oh, then you just go through the tiers and you start learning the editing software. But it's. You know, it's. I mean, everybody can also pick up a pencil and start writing. You know, a story too, whether it's good or bad.
My book is proof.
So yeah, I don't think that the implosion will have anything to do. I think independence is going to keep growing with technology, and I think that's the only reason why independent, the independent movie industry is there. I think technology. You mentioned Reservoir Dogs, but still, like Quentin still was a firm believer in shooting on film.
Oh yeah,
and that's nothing. That's no indie guy's going to shoot on.
No,
real
I don't take
35
anything.
millimeter.
I'm
you
not
know?
taking anything away from them. I was just pointing out Reservoir Dogs is like you can easily, if you're gonna point to something that where there was the disparity and independent film just changed, whether you wanted it to or not. It was when Reservoir Dogs came out. It was kind of like all of a sudden. I mean, look at today. Since then, Comic-Con isn't even Comic-Con anymore at San Diego. It's Hollywood.
Yeah, that's
Take
true.
it just how much mainstream Hollywood leaked into everything. All the independent film festivals that were famous, that where independent filmmakers go to, they don't even get an invite because Hollywood controls that now. And that's why I point Reservoir Dogs. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you like the film or not, it's just that seems to be a turning point. I mean, there's different points in time, like Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
It got lucky as hell. It figured out no one used the internet yet. They don't use the internet. We're not talking about Blair Witch Project.
Yeah.
We're just talking about, hey, that movie kind of sucked except the last 90 seconds.
I would agree with that with that goes back to what I was saying with technology. Blair Witch was one of the first movies that I followed on the internet, and I was so excited and so already scared before I ever even went to the theater to see it.
Yeah.
Because of how well they use things, and you were meant to believe this is all real. And that blew my mind. Still, I mean, some come and go, but you still have your indies that break, like The Purge. Have you seen The Purge yet?
Oh, yeah.
I have it sitting at home, but I've heard stuff about it.
I tell you what, I don't know how wide the release was, but it came to the theater in Washington where we live, and I thought it was something very unique. Again, but I don't know how good it did.
It was
only
only
there for like
what,
a week
$2
or
million?
two. It wasn't there very long.
That was like Pacific Rim was there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, The Purge was only made for
Chris
what,
has
$2
a
million?
comment
Yeah,
about
it's
Pacific
pretty
Rim.
cheap.
Oh, I'm a huge Pacific
Just
Rim
cheering
fan.
back there.
I was. I was a huge
Show
Pacific Rim
her
fan,
face or something.
and I was talking to my cousin who is an editor in Hollywood about it, and I said, oh, I hear it didn't do that great, and I'm bummed because they were talking about doing a second one. He said, oh no, the overseas gross was fantastic, and they're writing a
Okay,
sequel.
good.
So there you go.
Good. Well, that's
And that's not rumor. That's he actually heard that from someone who's involved on the project. So
Part of the problem is that we're such a what did you hear first society that it's, well, it didn't make $1 billion that first weekend, so therefore it didn't make any money. And that's,
Yeah.
everything's, the one thing I did agree with Spielberg is you would have movies that would be at the movies for a while. So if you didn't go on first weekend, box office weekend, then they would still be there and they'd be able to make money. But now if it doesn't make 20 times the budget that first 3 days, they're going to pull it and put something else
Yeah,
in.
and they even consider it a failure. Even
It's a
if it
failure,
made
even though
a
someday,
crap load.
yeah, and, yeah, so that's kind of misleading, I think, as far as how much a movie's gonna make, because it's not going to make, not every movie is gonna make everything that weekend, especially depending on how many movies come out, what else is going on, or,
Let's get Dawn in this conversation.
Hey, Donald, what do you think of this implosion?
After all this implosion, I was just listening to some of the comments here, and I can only relate to a couple of things that I just have been involved in. Did some extra work on a movie called Foxcatcher, and they come out and they says, this is going to be December 20th. It's going to be premiered, okay, in the theaters. And just yesterday, I saw something where, well, we're pushing it back because we don't want to, we got some little touch-ups to do on this and that, so they're pushing it back. So obviously they're going against other movies, and they're trying to, find a way to make money. Another movie that I was involved with was, it's coming out hopefully at the end of the year here. When they talked to us at the initial talk, reading and that, he says, when we make this film, we're going right over to Japan. I have connections over in Japan. They love horror films over there. That's where we're going to start making our money right away. And then we're going to try to hit the markets in Europe and so forth. And then eventually come over here in the U.S. and hit some of these film festivals and see what we can do over here. So, just like they were talking about, making money, they know over there they're going to make money. We're over here, they might put it out there, who knows what they can do. As far as an implosion, it used to be $5 for a movie, it's 10, 12 now, I don't know.
It's like buying a hockey ticket.
What happens when it goes up to $25? Are people going to go out and watch it?
I paid $18 to see Resident Evil in California.
Why?
It was 3D, yeah.
Why?
Oh,
It's
I
because we
know.
know Tim.
I just
that's
I
what the
wanted
better
to see it so
cinema
bad.
examples all the time. Why?
What?
At the art
It was in Sherman Oaks.
But I don't know
It was
whether,
insane.
You gave me $18 and I punched you in the face. I'll give you a better viewing experience.
That's true. Because there wasn't much 3D on it actually in the beginning. Like you could see a lot of 3D and then it just kind of filtered off.
So the big budgets, they're going to maybe they'll get to $25 and go see it. Who's going to pay it? Young kids again?
Yeah.
Kids.
Where are they gonna get their money to?
Kids.
Parents are going to sit home and wait till it gets on the HBO or on Netflix. They're going to sit there with a red box.
Or the parents are just gonna download it off the internet.
So I don't know. I don't know what kind of implosion.
It would be building on what Amy said as far as the irony goes. These two schmoes have a vested interest in Hollywood
Yeah.
Because when they first came in, they were the upstarts. They were the new guys. They
Yeah.
had changed the face of cinema. If you've noticed, they're not helping anyone the way their heroes helped them out anymore. And the last
Yeah.
person that they gave any time of day to was Chris Columbus.
Yeah, and they did that talk at a USC event with like upcoming filmmakers.
Yes. And as far as the implosion goes, they were the implosion of the box office has gone back to 1954 when television started moving into homes. They started getting into CinemaScope and Ultrascope and Surround and Feel Around and everything else. This is an ongoing idiotic argument from people who have too much money and are afraid that somehow they might have to give something back.
Yeah,
Lincoln didn't have to cost $200 bazillion.
Yeah.
no, I seen Abraham Lincoln versus the Zombies. It doesn't have to cost.
Yes.
I love that was a better movie.
But Daniel Day-Lewis
It doesn't have to do with stars.
surrounded him with other unknown actors and saved $100 million.
It has everything to do with what salaries that they take. And a number, as far as Lucas goes, he's never produced a good movie since perhaps
One
Raiders of the. He put out Red Tails, which is actually a fairly interesting study about the Tuskegee Airmen, but it looked like every other flag. It looked like Flyboys, looked like every other movie. It just looked like it came out 2 years too late. And there was no real hype for it, and the script was, it went through 7 drafts, they were terrible.
And plus, you could sit at home and watch the History Channel or watch Smithsonian Channel, and they have read all the documentaries about the Red Tails and several other things.
Neither of those two guys have any point of view on human beings.
Well,
You're putting on also the style over substance too. They're seem like first draft films to, not just them, I'm not just picking on them, but there's a lot of Hollywood movies out there that they just throw out and it's, it's
And I'll take
generic. Yeah. I'm sorry if anybody likes Avatar. I think it's the worst written thing ever.
It was odd. It's very
Well,
odd.
it's a first draft thing. They didn't even bother changing the name of, which sounds like a placeholder name of unobtainium is the mineral they're going for, and it sounds like a placeholder. And the Sigourney Weaver chat that she has with her boss that is almost literally, I know we've had this 5 times before, and I know we always have this argument, but I'm gonna have it again because these people out in the audience don't know what I'm talking about. And that's, the big budget movies are getting these really lame, like they don't care scripts because they're so worried about all the effects and all of the stuff that goes in the budget. Maybe if they spent a little bit more time on the,
Don't you
on
think
the
that's
script.
Jim Cameron though? I
I'm
mean,
sorry?
look at don't you think
Well,
that's James
yeah,
Cameron
yeah,
though?
yeah, I
Is
do.
he
But I don't want to
feeling
pick on
the
him just, because there are other ones out
Oh,
there
yeah.
that do it. But you spend so much time on, that's going to look cool, and that's going to look great, and that's going to look neat. Look at this new technology that I came out with. But the one shot I was waiting for in Avatar is they have this gorgeous technology, and it looked gorgeous, I'll admit that. But where's the nice sweeping shot of him riding this? If anybody hasn't seen it, I hope I'm not spoiling the movie. But
you're spoiling.
riding
Oh,
this. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the thing that he rides at the end, and I'm expecting like an IMAX, beautiful sweeping. Let's see this beautiful technology through his eyes. And then we went to see How to Train Your Dragon like a week later, and that's the shot I was waiting for in this movie. So use the technology and get a script, and maybe people might care a little bit more rather than just going,
I'm sorry, Pacific Rim fell right into that too. Like everyone loved it. It made so much money. What the hell was it about?
It was fun.
Yes, but go ahead. What was it about?
2.5
Robot
hours.
jocks.
Yeah.
It's Robot Jocks meets Godzilla.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it literally, if you take away $100 million, you take away 30 years, it's like, holy crap, I'd be watching this on TBS right now. This is awesome.
You go to movies to be entertained or to be just find something intellectual?
Yes.
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 Yes, that is the job of the movie.
I don't-
I do, but-
Well,
I don't want the
don't you think
entertainment.
that depends on the movie that you go
But
to
I
see
don't like
though?
being talked down
Because,
to. I don't like
there's
sloppy
Robot
stuff.
jocks and then there's.
I'm not looking, when I go to a
Yeah,
store to
but
see giant
your
robots
point-
fighting monsters, I don't want them seeing reading Shakespeare to each other. I don't want a story. I want
You don't want a
action.
story.
But
I
I
go
like the
to see a
technology. I like
different
the- if
movie
there's
for a
intelligent
story.
technology.
I like
To be,
I just don't like feeling like I don't have a brain. That's kind of how I feel like in
Yeah.
some of these movies.
Yeah.
They don't have
Yeah.
a brain. Nobody's gonna notice that we have no
Then
story.
we're calling it unobtainium.
And then we don't.
Yeah.
And we
And
don't
then
really.
it's basically Pocahontas in space.
I
Which is Avatar.
watched it.
Yeah.
It was a big rip-off.
Smurfahontas, yes.
Yeah.
Entertainment's fun. I will go to a I love Final Destination movies. I know they're really dumb and stupid and everything, but
Hey,
but again, they don't cost $1 billion,
Yeah.
and we're not going to sit there and spend 5 years of production and just say, here's the script.
And the reason that you
Sorry, I
like,
didn't mean to break
the reason that Final Destination
That
is
was
so
yours,
much
though.
fun is because they take time to write the characters that you care about, so you care if they die.
Yeah,
You
but
don't
see,
just
the-
watch,
Or you
watch a
hate
bunch of people.
The
Yeah.
third one
Yeah.
upset me because you were supposed to have this DVD feature that you could decide who dies first and how many people die. I wanted everyone to live just to see if they actually did it.
That doesn't go against the whole premise of the.
Yeah, but that was the
Movies.
awesome
Anyway,
part.
sorry.
But that was the sad part. I actually went in there and because how you would be able to pick live or die. I tried to make everyone live, and basically the DVD basically threw up all over me.
It just came out and said, "No, Tim, you're doing it wrong."
Yeah, exactly. It was like,
You talk about, there was a movie that I saw, Cloud Atlas, and
Oh.
everybody, it blew me away. I thought it was a wonderful movie.
Me too.
I
We're the
thought
only
it
two
was
people
well
in the
made.
world.
I thought it was very clever what they did with the actors and challenging to the actors if nothing else. I mean, come on. You want to play 6 different parts and play them convincingly in one movie? It's not Tony Randall in The 7 Faces of Dr. Lowe. I mean, come on. It's Cloud Atlas. And there was a little bit of philosophy. It wasn't Shakespeare, but you know what? The writing was good. The acting was good. It was well made. It was well directed. And one of the neatest things is I'm sitting there with my fiance, and she said the 70s part, you notice that it's filmed like a blaxploitation movie.
Yeah,
And I went, oh my God, you're right. Like right out of the 70s.
Yeah.
And so yes, they're still, but what was the budget for that?
That was about 110 million and had no marketing behind it.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Because they went, it's a good
They say
movie.
marketing is very costly too. That's one of the problems that they're experiencing as well. I mean, Hollywood, they say 29% comes from theatrical distribution, but for the past 10 years, ticket sales are running flat. So now they're trying to rely on the home video and streaming. That's like 36% of their profit comes from that. But that's where it comes in with the Netflix that we discussed earlier, is that they're like people don't care as much whenever it hits the Netflix, and they're not going to the theater. So I guess that's why they think that they're really losing. But actually, the funny thing is, this came out in June, the first, like when George and Lucas and Steven Spielberg first said that. But I found an article in August that kind of puts things in a better perspective. They're saving a lot of their really big budget movies for like the last year, like that. And like we have Thor coming out, I think.
Thor 2.
Yeah.
That's winning an Oscar.
Really thought.
Yeah. So they.
Exactly. I'm going to take my daughter to
I
it.
love Thor.
She'll enjoy it. It's mindless entertainment. But that's the thing. Whether it's mindless or not, whatever happened to just going to movies and just watching something you want to watch and just lose yourself in the movie. Whatever happened, just being a kid again, going back to the movies, no matter what age you were. Going to the movies, just escaping into the movie.
We're too aware now.
Well, I'm a
Sport
very strong
artists.
opinion about this because I hate going to the movies now. It's
Oh,
one,
yeah.
like one of the few things I have left in my life that I really love is going to the movies and being that child again and being sucked into it. Everyone is so goddamn cynical about everything that everybody wants to Mystery Science Theater 3000 every goddamn movie they go to. And you're paying $10 to go see a movie to hear the audience, not to hear the movie. And going to the movies to see new movies, old movies, everything is a miserable experience now. So why go? And I think that the people who actually love movies don't go to movies.
Well, you know what? Also, too, what doesn't help that fact is everybody has an HD TV in their fucking living room now. Everybody, the technology again in the past 5 years is amazing on what they can do. But you're always going to have somebody, whether it's myself or maybe even this gentleman who looks a little bit older than myself, that might want to see something on a film print.
Oh yeah.
Something, there's magic in movies still.
But the magic is taken away by...
Oh, yeah.
Because everyone's like, when you go to a magic show and there's that guy who's like, oh, I know how you did that trick. Well, that's what the audiences are like for every movie you go to.
Well, honestly, I chalk that up to overpopulation, stupid society in general, you really anymore just
And we could probably have another, like,
Yeah, you could.
three-week discussion.
Oh,
Yeah, that's why I don't even want to
Yeah.
get into it. It just,
I get so mad about
Of
that.
course, that's the
Yeah.
same argument they had at the Globe Theater when they opened up the gallery, the literal peanut gallery to the serfs for a penny apiece. It used to be, just as he said, it was a big event to go, but when they started letting the peasants in, that was the same argument then. That's why they literally started selling seats on the stage with the actors.
Well then, but can peasants afford to see movies now? They're so expensive.
Obviously,
Like,
there's enough of them out there.
I think that they're just
There's at least one second-run theater here in Pittsburgh, out in Century
There's
Street.
what?
No,
It's
that's
closed.
Well,
It's
it's
closed.
closed. Well,
That's
or
just different.
yeah, it's closed and
Yeah.
being torn down, or also as it's been called on my podcast and my website, the Pistench Theater, which is a whole other story in itself if some people haven't
I've been there.
experienced it.
Yeah, I've been there.
Sometimes that's part
Second
of
floor.
it.
Yeah, that's part of it. I was gonna say that is part of it.
Last winter they had a hole in one of the ceilings and a sign up that was like, "There's a hole in the ceiling. It's going to be really cold. If you don't like it, we're not going to give you your money back."
That is wonderful.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Christine, we've made your panel go off.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's why I only have 3 questions today. The life
Okay.
on other planets one went further. There's just one last thing I want to say is that they do have a solution to the box office implosion. They
Everybody pays that
yeah.
money.
Well, no, this is actually good for indie filmmakers. Because they think that Hollywood, like Amy said before, has an addiction to the mega budget movies. So what they're trying to say is that they should make like ones that are produced, like the Way Back was produced for less than $5 million and it earned $15 million before it hit home video and streaming. They also think that teaming up with independent filmmakers early in the production process, rather than waiting till something comes to Sundance, is a very good idea. And also checking out market research just to see, what people like, how it will perform in all channels and things like that.
I have a
So
problem.
yeah, market
I
research
have
has
a
made
problem
great
with
TV.
Which one?
that. Perfect example is Wreck. The film Wreck, it came out.
Okay.
A few years ago. The Spanish film that came out. That's where I have the problem because they actually, I forget who the studio was, bought the rights to the film. Delayed it 9 months just so quarantine could be made.
Lionsgate.
Come out into the U.S. before Rec was ever released in the U.S. And Rec was considered like an unbelievable box office smash overseas. And they delayed it, and after quarantine came out, it was like, oh yeah, we have this movie too. And it was like the mainstream crowd was kind of like, well, that looks like quarantine. No, dumbasses.
Yeah.
Quarantine,
But
they.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be that underground level. I mean, people
Yeah.
who want to see
Yeah.
Wreck had already seen Wreck.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
I seen Wreck also.
The,
long
the,
before,
the,
but-
the drooling masses are always going to be the ones ruining it for
But
everyone.
it was a perfect example of how Hollywood just swooped in.
Well,
We're
yeah,
gonna
but
buy
that-
this movie.
Sorry.
No, it just
That second one you said about teaming up with independent.
Oh yeah, I think
Well,
they
then
said
why
define
isn't it an
it.
independent film? Like, it sounds
Yeah.
like they
Okay,
want to come in and
they
say,
should.
oh, that's a great script, it's fine now, but we're gonna call it an
Well-
independent movie just to fool people that don't know any
Yeah, that's
better.
probably.
So yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
They can't do that.
yeah. Because I was also gonna say, I mean, Lucas and Spielberg are kind of like going against. I mean, if you go back to even before Jaws, they were basically independent guys,
Yeah, they were.
and for them.
Yeah, let's talk about The Duel.
Yeah, and for them
Doesn't
not
look
to
like
come
there
out
is a
and
copy
help, we'll
available
just say
right
example,
now in-
come out, say Mike Watts
Spell
is
the author's
there,
last name for me
he's
again?
making independent feature. For them to just not even throw money his way, it's kind of like, wouldn't you, if you want to have that argument of what's going on right now, the implosion, wouldn't you want to help somebody like Mike Watt out
Yeah, I
with
think
his movie?
I think the worst part was that they had the
No,
talk at
does
USC
not look
too, like I
anybody
said
has a
before,
copy
all
for
of
sale.
these independent filmmakers who are going out into the world. It's like almost discouraging talking to them about trends and saying that independent filmmakers have these ideas that are too
Oh,
fringy.
no, hang on,
You know
I'm
what I mean?
still.
Like, I
Well,
just-
yeah.
I don't
Still
think that
yeah,
they should.
okay,
That's
I
definitely
just
not the
found
place
one.
to bring
It
up
looks
the
like the
box
person who
Well,
listed it
and
had
the
the
cynical me, and it
had
sounds
the-
like it's,
title listed a
let's
little bit
discourage
differently.
them from doing that.
Um,
Let's get them
that's
into
what it
the.
felt like. Yeah.
I mean,
Hey,
I
stop
don't know,
stealing
and
my
then-
job.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Which
You're too
generally
fringy,
is gonna
be
be
more like
very
us.
Now you know they're like 69.
That's the
66
cheapest
years old,
copy. Do you want me to
so
look for
they've
something in
been
better
doing it
condition, or do you want me to
40
check the
years,
price on this
40
one?
years.
Yeah.
So they, I mean,
And it's been diminishing returns since
Yeah.
the 80s, since the studio system started buying theaters and home video again.
Yeah.
Yep, this is the
Then when
subco
did,
edition.
when do we get the economics into it as the part I always have a problem with? It's just probably an entirely different discussion too.
Yeah, I
but
was even
gonna
let's
say
adjust for inflation
34
and see what's
including
really, I hear box
Okay, hang
office
on a
records
second.
all
Let me
the
put that
time.
over through and then I'll get you
And
information.
I know a lot of them are not adjusted for inflation. So yes, you've made $14 billion this weekend, and Wizard of Oz, just to throw that out because I can't remember off the top of my head the ones that I always looked at, made only 15,000. But let's adjust for inflation and see which of these actually made more money.
people.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, somebody actually did
And
that
nickel
for.
pop, yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
remember
just
doing
changed
a
the
piece of
massive
paper on
inflation
it a
stats
few years
on all
ago.
movies.
And it's
On every box
and when you
office.
look at it that, it's a lot different than the headline of box office
Yeah,
smash
'cause
or records.
I was gonna say Texas Chainsaw Massacre is like a perfect example of that because
Yeah.
there is literally a point of time that no one actually knows how much money it made because of the whole mob owning it at one point.
Yeah, too.
But literally they've came out and they were doing estimates and people have written papers and things of
Okay, I'll
that
give you a call
nature.
as soon as it
And
gets
they've
here.
literally said Texas Chainsaw Massacre is basically
Yeah.
the biggest grossing, not only horror film, but film in general, just for the mere reason. There's hundreds of millions of dollars that were lost
Okay,
in
well,
the
we'll
early
get it in
80s
for
when that
ya.
was just going
No
from
problem. I'll talk to you
drive-in
soon.
to
Take care.
drive-in
Bye-bye.
Wow.
and selling out. And none of them seen any pennies of the movie.
Yeah, that reminds me. I remember one thing. He said E.T. was in the movie theater for a year and 4 months.
Yeah.
I think that they're used to things like that.
I
It's
get-
never going to happen.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
80s. Yeah, stuff
Yeah.
that happened in 80s is. There's a lot of stuff in movies that happened in the 80s. It's never gonna
Yeah,
happen. It's
yeah.
hard to
New
recapture
stuff.
that magic, especially during the 80s. Like Mike even brought up Raiders of the Lost Ark. Are you ever gonna see a movie like that ever again?
We didn't get
So
the
like
extra
Hollywood
time.
films.
And as for as much as I scream about robot jobs and stupid stuff like that, I was gonna say to this person, Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of my favorite movies of all time.
Let me ask this, let me ask
I could
this.
watch that to the day I die and not think I'm a kid watching it.
We're hearing all that, but these big budgets, out of those big budgets, how much is that trying to get big stars, which cost big money?
Yes, yeah.
So,
It's a
so,
sort
you know,
of
I won't do this film for less than 20 million.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right, but that is part of
But
the
see,
budget. So
That
Exactly.
goes.
So, I mean,
That goes into my theory about Ethan Hawke. I call him the new generation of Rucker Hauer.
I'm
Honest
trying
to
to figure out
God,
how
if
you
you
mean
sit
that.
there and think about it. Rucker Hauer did all these oddball, just odd movies, but they're memorable movies.
He also had a gambling debt and an alcohol.
Oh yeah, between Black Fury, Split Second, just different stuff that has popped up over the years. Even Hobo with a Shotgun. He's made these movies. And Ethan Hawke all of a sudden has come in the past couple of years. Just like look at some of the stuff he's been in, like Daybreakers. He's in The Purge. He's in trying to think of the other movie. It's slipping my Sinister, I think it is. He's popping up in these $5 million horror movies that are making a crap load of money, whether it's at the theater or on video. But he's just going everywhere. Where you get to hear like Angelina Jolie did some movie and it was $25 million for her. Meanwhile, he just made 5 movies that weren't even made for $25 million, and each of them made
Yeah, that is-
$25 million the weekend they were out. It just, I mean, I bring him up as an example. He is kind of like the modern day Rucker Hauer, because you mentioned Rucker Hauer, everybody's mind immediately, if it isn't Blade Runner, Hitcher. It's amazing, like the stuff that he's in. Or Flesh and Blood with Jennifer Jason Leigh, which was naked most of the movie, and Anybody Cares was awesome. But it was just, Rucker Hauer I love because he's such a very good actor that he just blends into stuff, and it seems like the older Ethan Hawke has gotten, he's kind of realized, hey, I don't need that big paycheck in order to have a good movie.
Yeah, because I guess R.I.P.D. was one of the biggest flops. It was about when we had it was like 30. They only grossed like 30, and it was like 130 to make.
Well, I mean, first off, you see the trailer, and it's kind of it was like an immediate red flag. Not that
Yeah.
it looks bad, but it was just like
So what?
This,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's Men in
thi-
Black.
this
Men in
movie,
Black.
Yeah.
you've seen the trailer and it was kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, it's, the dude is gonna be in this, and, you know, Green Lantern's gonna be in this, but it's kind of like, it was doomed from the start.
They're gonna
Yeah, I
make,
think so.
some of these actors like that are gonna make good money anyway. because-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
Yeah, they
in
do.
their
You don't think
contract,
Rickert
maybe
Beagle-
I'll work for
How are you gonna say?
$100,000, but,
Rucker Hall didn't have a clause where he got part of the box office on the?
no,
on
but
those
I'm
movies?
saying, no,
Oh,
I'm
he
saying,
did.
up front he'll get a paid,
He gets
a
residuals.
figure, and then he'll say, well, I'll make 2% of the profit.
Right.
And that's where he's gonna make his
That's
money.
what I figured.
Well, the problem though is that the studios have an army of accountants that hide all the money.
Yes.
So the reason that Michael Keaton didn't want to come back for Batman 2, Tim Burton didn't want to come back for Batman 2, they did it so they could actually make money because they didn't make any money off the first one.
I thought it was because Michael Keaton wanted to bitch about the Pirates for 20 years.
Well, that's
They started winning.
One of the actors on
Still bitching about
Devil's
it.
Rejects,
Yeah,
that we've heard stories from him, it's Devil's Rejects, one of the reasons it got pulled, even though it was still making money at the theater, is because they all had a clause in their contract saying when they get up to this much grossing, then their percentage went up a tiny bit. So rather than letting the actors get paid what they should, because they agreed on it, they pulled it, so they couldn't make that little extra. And, I mean, I understand that actors' fees are way out, but sometimes I kind of think it's good because, not good, but warranted, because sometimes people go to movies just to see that particular
That's
person.
true.
So if it's Angelina Jolie that's bringing in 20 million people just on her name alone, why shouldn't she get a little bit more? Maybe not as much as they're getting now, and that's
Yeah.
grossly over. But the whole actors union SAG, that's the reason, because they used to get paid crap for nothing, and,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
You think that somebody would notice, like, okay, we're gonna put Johnny Depp in Lone Ranger, and it's gonna make massive bank.
That's what they thought.
And then
They
the buzz
insisted it,
going
yeah,
in was
until you
so
hope.
bad. So in
Yeah,
order to
it's-
try and get the money back, they come up with a mega ticket idea, where for $50, you get the movie, you get a digital copy of the movie.
Do I get Johnny Depp? I will pay for
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Johnny Depp.
To be honest,
She's delivering it to my
to go to your,
house.
your
Yes.
point about the $50 mega ticket, Disney has tried that several times in the past couple of years with certain movies where literally, there were certain markets, I know it was in LA and New York at least, it might have been in Chicago and a couple other places, where Disney was trying, where you came out of the theater, and I think Cars was the first movie they tried it with, where you can buy the Blu-ray as soon as you came out of the theater.
Yeah, that'll be.
Which was, you know, is just kind of weird, and it's kind of like you go back to economy, you know, probably all of us here, if I go buy the
Well,
Blu-ray,
if you go
why am I
back to the
going in
kids,
there to
like
go
you
see it?
mentioned, if you
That's
go
like
back to
they're
the
counting
kids,
on that
the kid's gonna say, I want that.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Immediately, I want that.
Yeah,
I really like it.
That was the movie I
Well, you're
watched.
gonna say,
They're
I
counting
want
on the
that, I want
Walmart
that.
crowd.
Yeah,
to
that
buy
is
it.
kind of.
Mine would've said,
In
"Can I
order
have
to
that?"
shut- in order to shut the
Look
kid
at
up,
when
go
you
get it.
show movies to your kids. I don't know about your kids because they're a little
Weirder.
more diverse than a lot of kids, but like my nieces and a lot of other kids, people with kids that I talk to, how many times does that kid watch the same movie 3 or 4 times in a row?
I do that.
And yeah, and I mean, it even happened when I was younger and we had VHS and we had to rewind it.
Oh,
My
I
sisters
hated
would
rewinding.
still.
When I was younger, you could go
They
into
would
the theater at 10 o'clock in the morning and sit there all day and watch the movie 8
Yeah.
times for just for
So
one price.
why not say, hey, you know what, you really liked it, here it is, you can go home, the kids wanna watch it again, because there's such an instant culture with the kids though nowadays. They expect anything they wanna watch to be available at any time, wherever they are.
Well, to your point, in the past 20 years, we went from, you know, us being in high school where it was exciting to have a TV in your room to where a kid,
Yeah.
a kid that is in high school has freaking Netflix and Xbox 360. It's pulling, you know, not only Netflix but downloads off the internet
And I
and
just streamed my phone, Dad.
yeah.
Well, they
have
would have got me
stuff.
with Pacific Rim. If they tried to offer me to buy that when I left, I would have bought
I
it.
bought two.
I would have gone home and
She's
watched
like,
it.
great.
But I think
Oh, yeah.
we could probably move on to the next question, if you don't mind.
We don't wanna
No,
hear
we
all
were-
day with this
You
one.
wanna go?
We were confused.
Anyway.
Well, the second one is about women in film. Now, what have you noticed recently about women in film? Are they on the rise in film production as directors and producers rather than being, you know, just the actress in the film?
Apparently this happened to Ben David.
No, I had to
leaving
more, and I
that to
gotta
him. Tim, what do you think about that?
It's hard to say. Just for me, I don't think it has anything to do with actresses trying to get into the directing thing. I think it's anymore. I think women in film, it's more predominant, especially in horror movies.
Yeah.
Independent, lower budget horror movies, you see it a lot more often. I think women are more willing to take chances in films, and it has nothing to do with nudity or anything like that. They are willing to push that envelope. They're willing to cross that line to make a point in the film. I just think it doesn't matter women or men, especially in Hollywood these days. It's hard to decide who actually made the movie because they all sound the same, they all seem the same. Everything is being written, like what Amy was bringing up about the first draft of scripts.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. I think it's more different when it comes to independent film. I think women are able to, how to say it, basically show off their talents better than men can in independent film, filmmaking wise. I just think it's no longer, especially in horror films, anymore for me, I always say when I'm reviewing a movie, especially independent filmmaking, review a movie, if more than 30% of the movie is boobs, I, honest to God, just be like, really?
You added on the star to the review?
No, actually, I don't.
Not anymore.
No, anymore. It's just for your reason. You want to impress me? Don't have lesbian vampires in it. It's done. It's done. It just, honest to God, it's done. I love nudity. I love naked women, but you got to get to the point where we just moved that. It comes to the point you got to make a movie that has something in there that's going to entertain.
Yeah.
And if you're going to watch naked women, I just say, hey, that's what porn is for.
Now, I'm watching on Netflix right now, a movie called Attack of the 50-Foot Cheerleader.
I know what you're talking about.
Should put girls.
And now, they have the gratuitous boob shots, but it's not extensive. It's like, okay, we can do this, and okay, we're out of here. So it's not, I haven't quite finished watching it yet.
Keep
Keep
going
back
back to
as she grows, I mean, the first thing that grows is
Her boobs.
Her boobs. Her boobs.
Yeah.
And then the rest of her goes along with it.
Because it was probably written by an adolescent male, like.
I haven't got to that part yet.
I think women are more willing, they are willing to show nudity, whether it's male or female.
Yeah.
But I think they come to the frame of mind, they're not willing to have a cop-out, when you're watching independent film. Hey, what's going to sell this movie? Is it the blood? Is it the boobs? Or is it going to be the story? And I think the women will be like, hey, I can have blood, boobs, and a story to it, and it be a good movie. Where most, not all, but most males are just kind of like, well, let's put more boobs in it because we'll know we could sell that,
We don't have enough blood to go around.
and we know distributors will pick it up immediately. Doesn't matter if the movie's good. We got 6 different women buck naked in this movie. It's gonna sell. And I mean, I love, like I said, I love seeing naked women. But at some point, it's kind of like, look, I'm gonna watch porno. That's better. That's fine. That's where it should be. I want to see a creature. I want to see somebody getting stabbed 58 times. I want to see decapitations. I want to see wrestlers fighting Godzilla. I want to see other stuff. That is what horror movies are.
What a great idea!
That was the one thing about horror movies, and to make a prime example of it, the original script of Jagoff Massacre, when it was handed to me, the first thing, because Daniel Boyd, the co-director, is like, well, is there something you would cut out of this? And I said, yes. Actually, I would like to cut out the topless scene of the girl in the movie. I said, you got to think about this. I said, besides, which ended up being the lead actress was his girlfriend, not by choice. We had 4 other actresses, head aneurysms, car accidents, A lot of stuff happens.
So your movie literally killed people.
Yes, it did. That's a long story. But anyhow,
It's called The Curse of the Jagoff
the
Massacre.
point
He's making that one next.
the first thing I cut out of it was a topless scene out of the script, just for the mere reason. I said, yeah, the movie might not get out past Pittsburgh, but the point of the movie is I want to entertain, I want people to get the joke. I shouldn't need boobs to sell the movie. I want people to understand it's a Jagoff Massacre for a reason. I don't want people to be like, dude, the movie was cool, but it was awesome when that redhead with her big ass D cups come on. That was great. I don't want that. I want, hey, I loved when the dude just started talking about Iron City and talking about Obama and talking about the Monongahela coming out and wiping everybody out. I'd rather hear that stuff than about a naked chick. And it could be said about a naked guy too.
Yeah.
It just, that's the sad part. It's accepted in society. For some reason, there's still that disparity that male nudity is a turnoff in movies. Impress me. Show some dude full frontal. I'd be like, that is awesome. I don't
Forgetting
care if
Sarah
he's still
Marshall.
sporting the 70s Johnny Holmes Bush.
That's how 28
That's
Days
cool.
Later started.
2 minutes in.
Put it in
Yeah,
there.
it did start off
Did.
with a lot of seeming power.
And I was there with some guy friends, and they were like, ugh.
See, it doesn't bother me, but the point is, I think women are more willing to take chances on story, what's set up in the
Yeah.
film structure than males are, because they're only seeing, hey, I need this, this, and this. It's a movie. Women, they're like, well, look, this needs to be this way, this needs to be this way. If we do this, there's a twist in here, and it could be a more interesting film. People might not accept it, but the point is, women will take more chances
Okay,
and
I
do it.
probably
What about the fact that Hollywood's getting away from the R ratings and going PG-13?
for you.
Now, let's not get started on that. I don't even want to bring
That
it up.
doesn't do with movie making.
Yeah, that has nothing to do
We'll
with
be
it.
here
but
for
it-
5 hours with Tim talking about that.
First of all, honest to God, first of all, the PG-13 rating, we all need to go kill Paul W.S. Anderson.
Okay.
Any
other-
other
any real
panel will be
reason?
next.
No, honestly, I just,
They're not
I,
eliminated by the
they're,
same people in
honest to God,
recreation.
what happened to the days of John Carpenter?
Thank you.
What-
Wanting his own, there's reasons why these guys got old and doesn't it seem like they got pushed out of the filmmaking community? Whether, and even
Given
George
worse and worse
Romero,
scripts.
John Carpenter, as these guys gotten older, and we talk about younger generation. Honestly, is there anybody, and don't mention Eli Roth, I'll punch you in the face. Is there actually anybody out there besides Robert Rodriguez that even seems like they're trying to put something out, out there that isn't safe, that isn't R-rated anymore these days? It's like,
Well,
oh,
Tarantino
you made,
did Django, and that was pretty
yeah, you know what though, Tarantino could put, he could show
You're
2
right.
hours of a piece of dog crap on
I
film
love it.
and MPA
And
be
Eddie
like,
Warhol
oh, that's
sued
awesome,
for
go ahead.
copyright infringement, so.
It's one of those things, it just, there isn't anything, it's really, just Hollywood has become too Hollywood anymore these days. I mean, we're
Yeah,
getting
that's
away
gonna
from
be
women
our
anymore,
next
but like I
one.
said, I just feel women are more willing to take chances where males don't, and I think males should listen up and take that chance because it needs to be taken.
Well, they would take away women's roles again.
Did you see
Amy,
the
what do
movie
you think?
American Mary?
I have not seen American Mary.
I would like to see that.
It
I have
was
not seen that yet.
Directed by
That's on our next
female
one.
daughters,
Yeah.
or not
Jen and
daughters,
Sylvia
sisters.
Soska.
The lead actress was fantastic. She was the girl from Ginger Snaps.
Catherine Isabel.
The thing that I noticed the most was this is actually a strong female character written as a female. It wasn't Ripley, who
Yeah.
was a female version of some badass dude like Kurt Russell in a jumpsuit. This was a fantastic movie. There was gore all over the place, and it was done by a woman for women, and I enjoyed it.
And to your point, the sad part is the critics that have contacted me to see if I've seen it and say how good it was. They were all male critics, and I told them, I said, hey, you know, female directed this, right? And they're like,
Two of them.
yeah. They're like, really? I was like, yeah. I was like, that's what's cool about it. For the love of God, female made near dark. Near dark's awesome.
Nothing against you, Tim.
Oh, thank you, sir.
This
This is good.
I'm not going, yes. No, I just have a bad thing about critics. critics sometimes.
Oh, no, that's fine, I understand totally.
You know, a critic will go see a movie, and once again, it goes back to the entertainment part of it. They'll go in, they'll dissect this thing to no end, and I'll go see the movie and I'll say, I had a good time, you know, I spent my hour and a half there, whatever it is, and I enjoyed it. But they dissect it so much sometimes, you know.
Oh, no,
They turn people off from what.
Yeah, you're correct, and to be honest, when I started Gross Movie Reviews, that was one of the things I really sat down and tried to do. Let's not talk about the spelling, but one of the things I sat down and tried to do when I was writing reviews, and it came from a conversation with Joe Bob Briggs from a cool convention called Genghis Khan.
Oh, so you're the one who went.
Sitting there sharing beers with Joe Bob Briggs and just listening to what he had to say. And he said, be yourself when you're writing. And it was the best thing I could ever do, because even if I disliked the movie, especially independent films, I put their website in there. I put, where else you could buy the film, where you could contact the filmmaker. Because I've always said, even if I don't like it, I want you to go see it. I want people, even if it's not an independent film, I want people to come back, tell me about it, tell me I was wrong. That's fine. I don't have a problem with it. Which makes it weird, because I am criticizing these movies, but in the same breath, I'm sitting there telling you, hey, I want you to support this same movie. I think it's a big pile of crap. I want you to still check it out for yourself.
And you like it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you like it, more power to you. I mean,
That's the thing I have with critics. You don't have to listen to them. They're not your teachers or anything else. If you disagree with them, that's...
yeah, and
Nobody's going to yell at you.
I was going to say too, another thing that what you're saying, Don, other reason why I write the reviews I write and how I write them is because I always felt, especially when I was writing, especially the big ass book of Gross Movie Reviews, when I'd write it, and this is the same in Mike's book. It's one of the few. It's one of the few books that you're reading a review of the book, you don't feel the writer is talking down to you the whole time. The writer is actually taking you on a journey, taking you through the movie, even if you never thought twice about the movie. It makes you want to go rent the movie. It makes you want to go find it on Netflix, and wants you to track it down on eBay and pay the $29 to buy the movie, watch the movie, even though we might only give it 2 out of 4 stars. You're interested in what we have to say. It sounds entertaining to you, and that's the point of writing a review. It shouldn't be, hey, you know what? This is what's wrong with the movie. This is what's wrong with the movie. You should never watch this movie. I mean, unless the movie is that bad, maybe it shouldn't be a movie. And to be honest, there's very few movies I come across that I feel that way. And the one thing I've always done is when I do talk bad about somebody's movie, I have gone up to that person and met them face to face, which a lot of critics don't. And one of the meetings that I had was with Fred Vogel. And I told him to his face, August Underground Mortem shouldn't even be considered a film. That you should
That's not the
question.
first time he's heard that.
Yeah, I said to him, you should question yourself as being a filmmaker, because that's not a film.
But isn't that Fred's thing though? Fred's thing is to give you
Yeah,
alternative cinema.
Exactly, and that's what I respected Fred, because I said this was after I seen Reds Tower, and I was like, somewhere along the way, you found a film that Argento and Fulci made in 1982 and didn't tell anybody about it, and you put it in your movie and called it The Reds Tower, and he said, that's the greatest compliment I could ever have, somebody say that. And he's like, I respect somebody that's willing to tell me to my face, my movies suck complete balls, and he's like, that's cool. He's like, no one's else, he's like, everybody else thinks Mortem is the greatest thing on earth. And he's like, honestly, Tim, I just make these goddamn movies to make money. He's like, Reds Tower was what I enjoyed making.
When we went to see Resin Tower for the premiere of it, and we're at the theater, and Fred comes out, and anybody have any questions? And the very first question is, when's the next August Underground?
Yes.
And Fred's face just fell, and I felt so bad for him because he wants to do other stuff, but
There's a crowd for that type of
Yeah.
film. Yes, there's a crowd.
And that's
But
the thing is,
yeah.
if you don't like this critic or you don't like this movie, that doesn't mean that somebody else in the room or the country or
and I
whatever
understood
isn't going to.
he was making those movies to pay the bills.
I think that a lot of people don't always listen to critics either. I just wanna,
Or,
if we could move back
Or
on
people
topic.
that run the panel. Right? They're probably gonna listen.
Yeah, if we could just move back
Well, we were
on
getting to
and
Shelby
back to
Vogel
that.
right after.
I love Shelby.
Women in film,
Shelby,
Shelby.
I mean,
I
you do
love
reviews,
Yeah.
that's great, that's wonderful. I mean,
Shelby's
it gives
awesome.
people,
Yeah.
it gives people like, you know, a preface to the movie.
And some people
people
like
are gonna
it
choose
being
whether or
taken
not they-
apart, like you were saying.
Yeah,
They love
yeah.
those critics. Well, that's great.
Yeah. I just like entertaining people.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk down to people.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing you can ever do in
Yeah,
society is
definitely.
talk down to people.
But Amy, what do you
Women
think about
film.
I have a really hard time with the subject because as a woman,
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's-
You're a woman?
I don't like being singled out as woman filmmaker. However, I have used it to my advantage to get into things because it's there, and just
I knew it.
yeah, most women will, yes. But then again, one of the reasons is because when we first started doing things and we first started doing movies, or I first started going to conventions, it was such a, I always felt talked down to. It was you're a cute little girl. Oh, you like movies. Oh, that's so cute. That's so funny and wonderful. And it's like, well, then obviously you must be some sort of
Scream queen.
deviant or slut or something else if you're going to a horror convention and you like horror movies. So I think there is a reason. I think I'm just babbling here. At
No,
this
no,
point,
you're
but
It's
going
awesome
to these
'cause
things
Jason
and
didn't have anything to say.
yeah, we were talking with. I was talking with a bunch of women online, and we were joining all of the movie groups way back when there were message boards for this kind of thing. And you would say you were a female in your little profile box, and almost immediately you would get all these instant messages going, hey, you like movies, maybe, where do you live? Maybe we should go out, or hey, you're gonna be around, and oh, and you dare put a picture up, and it's like, oh, that's hot, and oh, it's so neat that you like these movies, and maybe then obviously we should get together. So we created this site.
And those
for-
were the nice ones.
And those were the nice ones, yes, exactly. So we created this separate site for women in horror, so we wouldn't get that, and we still did, by the way. And so being the woman in horror starting out way back before it was kind of fashionable as it is now, which is great, I understand that we did need to kind of set ourselves apart because there were a lot of people that really didn't respect you, and the only thing that you were was that at this point I was girlfriend, I think, I don't remember. I was the director's girlfriend or the writer's girlfriend, or isn't it cute that you want to direct your own little movie? That's just so adorable, you little cute little thing. And it was so infuriating and so annoying and just so frustrating, and it's like, well, why do I have to be set apart as a woman doing this? Why do I have to be made different from the other people? Why does it have to be the woman that does this, or the woman that does this, or this woman that did this? And it's just, and all the reviews, oh, that was even worse. I mean, it was bad enough being an actress in the film, but when they would do the reviews of the filmmakers themselves, and even the Soska twins that I know play it up too, but other women that don't play it up, they would get the pretty blah, 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 whereas, Tim, I'm going to use you as an example, the talented or the loquacious Tim Gross, but it would be the pretty, Sylvia Sosko. And it was always about the looks when it was the women, and it was always about what they did with the men. And that's just a whole 5-month debate, I think, if we all sat here, we could go on the differences between women and men and why it's so different. But I don't think there should be a separate singled out women. I think there are more women coming out as directors and everything now. I don't necessarily know if there are more that are actually doing it, but a lot of maybe women that directed things, you hear more and more that, well, I did kind of direct that, or, Lucas's wife that did edit, did the fantastic editing, and all the women that did this, all of a sudden now it's like, it's okay to do it because you're not, the film's not gonna get put over on this shelf because it was a woman that did it. It's gonna be put up with the other films, so it's okay to be, so maybe that's why there seems to be more women that are directing, because it's okay now and.
It's probably just using it for making fun
Yeah.
too.
And it's nice seeing more of the women at Horror Realm or all the conventions. It's great that they're coming around now, and now it's not just it's either the booth babe, that we used to call them, the girls with the
It's
widowhair.
still called that.
Yeah, I know, but
There's
it's
fewer
not as
now.
much as at the conventions now. There's not as nearly as many booth babes.
They've been weeded out.
They've been weeded out and they've been replaced with, like Shelby. I'm one of the filmmakers, and yes, she's an adorable woman and she's beautiful, but that's not the only reason people go up to her. People go up to her because they respect her work and they respect, her screen printing and everything else she does. They like the t-shirts. That's what I keep hearing a lot. Is she's a great. And then you have Sandy doing the convention too, which never would have been done years ago, or at least even if you were doing it, it would have been Rich's convention and Sandy and Michelle were helping out a little bit, and that's how it was always marketed, or at least thought of as.
I mean, on a low end right now, I do a lot of college movies, these little short movies, 6 to 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it might be. There are a lot of women that go to school to be the producers and the directors and the writers and whatever else is involved in there. Every time I go to one, there's maybe 10, 12 students there, and minimum half of them are all women. So I mean, where they go from there, though, I don't know, because it's got to be so tough to get a job, period.
Yeah, and then I would argue some of them actually get drummed out because they're tired of the comments they're getting in class, which is just any other profession, you go into, and it's like, hey, you're a woman here, and you might as well go out with me because we have this little thing in common. And it's so few women, and it's not all guys.
A couple of them I know have sort of made it in Hollywood, in LA, I said Hollywood, but they're out there in LA and they're actually got jobs. But for the most part, they might just go by the wayside. They'll get their college and we made this movie, and then they'll go out there and they'll be a waitress somewhere, or work like Christine
Hollywood's
somewhere.
hard, yeah, Hollywood's very
Yeah,
hard.
I was gonna
That's
say.
a big thing with men too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, man
Yeah.
or woman, Hollywood's hard, and I think
That's why it's.
I think.
Well, my first
like,
month
where
there, I
you
did
live
get
at.
a syndicate. I did get an acting gig on a syndicated program, but that was the extent.
And it's also a look town. You have to be even.
You
I
have
think
to know
behind
Like me
the-
to be out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's unfortunately.
Even be behind the camera, you have to be young, beautiful, man and woman. I'm gonna say. Yes.
That's why they call me in Dawn.
I think what you just said though was I think it's showing a progressive sign, because when I went to film school 100 million years ago, there was one female film student. She was only interested in art films, and none of the teachers wanted to encourage it. And 99.9% of people who go to film school will never ever work in film. So, but I do think it's a positive sign. If you go to San Diego Comic-Con, which is brought up, now, when I started going there 15 years ago, it was mostly guys. Now it's more than 50% women. So I think we're showing that we're seeing a cultural,
Well, also
positive
too,
cultural change.
to your point, women being nerds, coming out as the comic book nerds and movie nerds, it's cool for them now. It's like society has accepted.
It's
a
okay,
trend thing.
and you're not looked at
Yeah.
funny. I watched
I've always
The Big
been
Bang
nerd.
Theory. I love The Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, I
It's a
love
great show, but I have a real problem anytime they go to the comic book shop with any, because you don't see that as much anymore. It's not a.
Her being the only woman.
Yes, exactly. You see a lot more women at the comic
Yeah.
shops or the yeah.
Even-
it's a lot. And I realize that's just a silly sitcom.
Even
but
Face
still.
Off, the Sci-Fi Channel show, you're seeing a ton of women doing the makeup, doing the contest.
That's
The
what
one was
that's
there.
what they do normally, though.
Yeah.
That's what they should stay doing right
That's what they
now.
call for
Yeah.
Molly there in OJ.
Oh,
My younger
that's the next
sister
panel.
has
They're
been
doing
in
fantastic.
Hollywood for probably
To,
the past, since she was in her mid-20s or late 20s, okay? And it has never been an easy road for her. She is still not in the union,
Yeah.
but she has worked in film for as long as she's been she lives in North Hollywood.
Yeah.
She has did a PSA with Clint Eastwood. I did this indie with this is years and years ago. She did a PSA with Clint Eastwood. She did an indie with Cassandra Peterson and David Landberg.
That's awesome.
And she sent pictures and said, yeah, Squeaky doesn't look so good, but Elvira is still as beautiful as ever. And she works and she works and she works, and then she doesn't work, and then she works and she goes and she sends and says, can you send money? So, but the women, you say, why are women in Hollywood, women in film? It's one of those things. They've talked about the glass ceiling for years. The idea that, I mean, I've even seen T-shirts that in order for a woman to be recognized for being as good as she has to be twice as good as as a man. And of course, the rest of the T-shirt is, unfortunately, that's not difficult. But the idea of the women in film and them, they don't go with the boobs, they don't go with the blood, they go with the story, they go with because they're, anybody who has respect for what they're doing is going to go for the best product they can put together. Whether it's a man, whether it's a woman. They're going to go for the story, they're going to go for the best special effects they can afford, the best makeup artists they can put together, the best whatever. And that's what they're going to do. Other people, they just want to make a movie and they want it to be flash and they want it to be everybody's attention, whether it's a man or a woman, and they'll throw the blood, extra blood into it. They'll throw the boobs into it.
And even they go a little bit further. The only thing I ask, especially independent films, whether it's a man or a woman, if you just show passion behind that film, the film could be horrible. If you show passion, the whole review that I write will be about how passionate you were about this horrible movie you made. Because it shows me you have the passion to continue. You weren't in this for the excuse me. In it for the money. You're gonna actually. I'll put that with my last beer. You're not in this to just sit there and go to the convention and sell 50 copies of the movie.
Right.
You're in it. You're in whatever. Say you sell those 50 copies. You're gonna turn around, use that money. You're gonna go make another movie. That's going to be 10 times better than the one you just did. That's all I ask for, passion. And with that passion
will keep you working.
Yeah, and a lot of times the people that are passionate about filmmaking, they have fun. That's all I ask. Tell me you have fun. That was
a lot of hard work.
Yeah, it's hard work. You're learning on the job a lot of times, but you know what? Even before I did Jagoff Massacre, that was one of the two things I asked. I said, let's understand we're going to have fun. And the co-director said yes, and I said I'm in. That's all I want.
Well, Jason, what do you think about this women in film thing? I thought I know you wanted to
get her off this. We would never forget you, Jason.
Well, I have a lot of things to say about women. What I will say, I will summarize everything I have to say. Though, is I think you said it. You said the cultural. I'm sure if you look at the film industry as opposed to every other industry in the world, or at least in our country, I'm sure you can see the progression of women, not only women but other minorities, and predominantly, I think, not to bring up George again, Romero, and we always do, but to put an African American lead was still unheard of when he did it in Night of the Living Dead. It was unheard of, and so. I mean, let's face it. Every business in our country started with probably rich white men, and as we as we're moving along, the women are going to slowly take power. But in film, women were there in the beginning of films. They had big roles in the film industry in the beginning. Unfortunately, the men still went to the executive producer positions, and the business portion of it. Some of the earliest cinema was just women putting on makeup and combing their hair, and because that's what sold. I mean, people went to watch that. Women are more, I think everybody, even women would rather watch women than, it's just, they're more of an art to them, to everything they do as other looking at a man. So that was in the roots of film history. Did you come across that? You said yes.
I did find like that a lot of movies are like white male dominated, not to be controversial or anything, but that a lot of the films that are being produced are for the white male because they think that's like their largest audience, and they think that seems to be a bit of a problem in our. That's why things are kind of flowing into.
We'll continue. Also, you said you were in film school, and you said there was one girl in your class, right? Okay. When I went to college, I started off in secondary education, and when I sat in a classroom, there was probably a good mix, 50-50. Then I switched to computer science and got into the mathematics, and as I started going towards the engineering type stuff, less and less girls were in my classroom. In my computer programming classes, there maybe were one or two girls in there. So, but I watched it progress from it when we were saying it's now cool to be a geek now. I've watched that whole. It wasn't cool before to be in computers. Early '90s, like you were a nerd. Then I watched that revolution almost happen to where, yeah, you will see, you go to a comic book store now, there's girls in there, or she's behind the counter now, and she can talk to you about Spider-Man like any of the other guys can. So, I mean, I've watched that slowly, and as I went through school, I started seeing more girls in the technology building, just in the 4 years, okay, like 5 years it took me to graduate. I watched more girls come to the technology building, and I was like, oh, wow, so I think the 2000s, that was when it really started to become really cool. And then, of course, the whole thing hits with the technology, and then it just becomes to be cool to be a filmmaker. That's why I call myself an entertainer, because my films, I don't know what standard you have to hit to be a filmmaker, but I'm not there. So I just rather entertain you and with everything else. But
You have to hit the standard.
yeah, I don't even know what the standard is, but don't call me a filmmaker. I told Christine before, I'm like, don't call me a filmmaker.
No, because you
Tell me
can.
it's
Do you
entertaining.
feel like
Entertain
you're insulting?
I'm insulting someone out there by
Yeah.
taking that title. That's why I don't do it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because you have Amy that's sitting next to us, who is literally a filmmaker. She works hard at it. And you have Mike, who's in the audience, who makes films. And it's kind of like, I feel insulting because it's like, hey, I made a movie called Jagoff Massacre. It's,
So there's
like,
filmmakers and movie makers.
yeah, it's one of those things. It just, you don't want to insult the people who.
What he's neglecting to tell you is he was with us for the first half dozen.
Exactly, on the film.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it just, I feel like I don't want to insult those people because they're very passionate, and even Jason's passionate about what he does.
I don't even know what I do.
Chemical Skyline is a very, very cool independent zombie film that people should check out. But
What I will tell you about that, when you went to the reviews, when I contacted Tim Gross to review my movie, I didn't really give a shit what Tim Gross said about it. I know Tim Gross throws you plugs everywhere, and everybody in the world wants to know what Tim Gross thinks about it. So even if Tim Gross says this is the worst movie ever, people are going to be like, I have to see it. That's how I look at all critics. I mean,
And that's the way it should be. That's the way it should be.
It's just like, and I've had great reviews and I've had terrible reviews. A guy put it in the London Times, did a review on the film, and everybody overseas think this is like the greatest. I've had people like, I need 10 copies of this. I'm like, when we first go pre-orders, and I'm like, I don't even understand. And I have people who are like, yeah, okay. Yeah, it's all right. Because when I watch it, I'm like, okay, there's some things that like could do differently. Oh, that's bad. Except when Dawn's on the screen, I'm like, that's
That's gold.
That's cinema.
Magic.
What was I talking about? Women again. Yeah.
Yeah, the women.
We included one in this film. Who? Oh yeah, Christine. She was in it. Yeah. So I occasionally put a woman in my project.
Yeah.
No, but, okay, but back to what you were saying. What'd you call the girls in the booth? Booth babes?
Booth babes.
Here's what I want to say about, and you said like sometimes I use that to my advantage. Here's where it becomes a problem, because I'm friends with 7 billion people on Facebook, and I see a lot of female directors, filmmakers out there who will have a picture of their film, but then they'll be in their bikini, like this. And I'm thinking, if that's not using sex to sell whatever your film is, and I don't know what, which is what prompted me to start my modeling girls, my knockout girls. So I was like, I'll have them promote my stuff, and it works. You know, when we would go to Horror Realm, I have 2 or 3 girls in our shirts. They're tight. You know, they're the drunk girls stumbling around, flirting with every booth there, and that's what I do. And I throw cards out and make it rain around there. And I'm thinking, geez, boy, I get a lot of attention when I bring the girls with me. So yeah, they
It sells.
yeah, it does.
And we can blame you guys for
It does. It
You know,
does.
but hey,
You have to use that.
It does, because the sad part is, I got Gross Movie Reviews shirts made up.
Is that
At
the
least,
sad part? Oh, sorry.
yeah, that is the sad part. 3/4 of the sales of those shirts were women. And I always said, you know what's funny? Is my face is all over these women's chests.
But as far as what you're,
Speaking of women.
that being a cultural type of thing, I went to a panel once at Sin City. They had all the guys from the film there and all the girls from the film there. And a huge audience, nobody asked any of the girls questions. They only asked the guys. Girls ended up getting bored and just talking with each other on the panel because no one was engaging them at all.
Yeah.
And it's there to be seen and not heard. And one of the things that I find creepiest about Hollywood is that if you're a female child star, you will not make it as an adult unless you do nudity in a movie. And then suddenly you're famous and everyone respects you as an actress.
Yes.
If you're a male child actor, you don't ever have to do any of that stuff.
No, because you'll burn out.
You're
You'll
gonna
be on drugs and end up like.
Well, but I mean, like, Neil Patrick Harris never had to do nudity in a movie yet. I mean, from
Which-
like,
Yeah.
everyone from like, you know, Drew Barrymore on, she's the one who started that trend. And now, female child actors can be in anything as an adult unless you.
They have 2 other boxes.
But you're right.
You saying you like that rule that we should make all women?
No, I'm just.
Oh, okay. I totally misunderstood what you're saying. I was
There's
like,
like positive cultural things where women are now allowed to be accepted in society as beauty culture and things like that, but still there's that one area.
And that's
so-
just not
Don't you think
filmmaking, that's
a little bit of the idea of boobs and the, I'm sorry, go ahead. I apologize.
Yeah.
don't
Sorry.
That.
I didn't want to interrupt you, you're on the panel and I'm just.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
What were you called on?
A little bit of this that you're talking about with the idea of the booth babes and all of that stuff, I track back to comic book culture. I was a comic book fan. If I had the money, I'd still be buying comic books.
I don't even know if it's
But-
comic book culture. It goes back to like car shows. They still do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, they to this day, yeah.
You know, TV commercials
Sure.
and guns. Looking through a gun book, you know,
Yeah.
how many
Hot
guns do
rod.
you see? Hot rods, everything.
That
is-
scene in Jackie Brown where the 2 chicks are
Adolescent
just
male
shooting the
mentality.
guns.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, I still have an adolescent male mentality. I'll be the first to admit it.
And a lot do, which is why it works
But
that
also,
way.
but also too, we're in a society now that has accepted gay, transsexual, bisexual, and it's no longer frowned upon if girls sit there and say, "Oh, she's kind of cute," and I think that helps a lot too.
Well, that's exactly what I was saying. With even women would rather look at women because I know we always say like with the lesbian thing, the 2 gay girls would rather not watch 2 gay guys ever.
I would.
Which I don't understand.
You fine with that?
You know what? I think it's more women that won't talk about it.
But
than-
women would rather look at women.
That's still not accepted, yes.
And they should be allowed to.
Ah, okay.
Never mind. What's
See,
the
that's
next
the whole
question? I was with
problem.
Alex.
What are women
You have
allowed
to
to
grow
do?
up.
Hey, Amy, you want to meet Jason up later?
No, I was just simply
Are you
responding.
gonna?
I was responding to his question.
Oh, that's like-
His
like,
motion
don't
to
talk
make
to
all.
That's all right, thank
Not to be
you.
successful as an adult actress, you have to be an adult actress.
Yeah.
But
I don't have a problem with Ripley being Ripley.
I was just comparing.
I know, but like, no, I'm
Was there
not saying
anything
like
that Ripley did that just screamed woman? In any-
being a woman. I don't think there is a woman-man
When she
thing.
stripped off, when she only had her panties on,
That-
when she was getting into
I was
That's all I was
thinking.
thinking.
The guys who are sitting in the audience going,
Well, it's you know, woman roles and men roles, and there is a difference between a lot of women and men, but there are a lot of women that are Ripley, and there are a lot of men that are
nah.
not. Yeah, I can't even think of anybody off the top of my head, but it's not. You have to be like this to be a woman. You have to have boobs and a a vagina to
Wait a
be able
second.
to.
Let me ask you a question.
Let's check that. We have a fact checker.
When you're
You
writing,
don't even need.
Yes.
you're writing a female character versus a male character. Do you have a difficulty writing the male character
No,
versus the
actually,
female
sometimes
character?
people have been creeped out because I think I embody the male pretty well. I'm very objective when I write a story, so I want to know what they're feeling at that moment. For example, Final Moon that I did with Matthew Beltry, he has a curse and he's going through hell. He's trying to love, he's trying to live, but at the same time he still has those destructive impulses, so he'll hurt himself while he's trying, if he does something like he hurts somebody that he loves, he'll like do something to hurt himself, you know what I mean? Like, and I can actually vividly explain to him, like bashing his face up in class or something, yeah.
Teacher,
Right.
in your, in your books, a lot of times you throw in a few pages of sexually arousal type stuff.
Yeah, well, it's a
And
natural
it's like
part of.
or you throw that in there as a,
Well, it's a natural part of humor. If you create a book where there's no love, there's no passion, there's no action, then you're not embodying the action what a person is like. I mean, people don't.
As long as it
They're
contributes
not
to the
all
story.
sexless. Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. They never use it gratuitously, no, or violence. Everything has a purpose. When you write a story, if you do too much violence, too much sex, it's just pointless. It does. It kind of boils down to just being.
Okay, let me get real quickly before this goes off on another one here. A lot of female producers and directors that are once stars, actresses. It seems like, okay, they made it as a star actress. Now they have a lot of money. Now they're able to produce. Now they're able to direct on their own. So it's almost like a progression.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I can't even name actresses and that, but they've all sort of gone on to production and so forth. And they,
Penny Marshall.
yeah, they all move on like that. And I don't know if you can actually just be a producer as a young girl because.
No, you really have to climb the ladder. And actually, I have a little bit of statistics. Good news. I guess that overall, women have fared best as producers. That's 38%, and then writers, 34%, and then it seems like their weakness right now is director of photography. They only have 3% on there. So I mean, the figures are rising very, very slowly, but every year you'll see an growth. I mean, obviously 70-something is still men, but women are definitely starting to do.
There's a lot of groups that look into this. There's like an organization, Women in Film and Media.
Oh yes,
Well,
yes, I did find it.
Women in film and TV too. And like all these directors and producers, there's like 400. organizations. So there's always organizations that have these, groups and so forth that you can join.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah.
And I also wonder how many are not reported, how many of those women,
Right.
people that have produced a movie are not, do it under their husband, boyfriend, or a pseudonym.
Oh yeah,
just
yeah,
to-
and that's something I'm going to be doing. I'm going to in the future, just for your panelists, I'll let you know. I'm going to be publishing something under a male's name just to see what kind of reaction it does. It's an experiment. I won't tell you the name yet. But I think it's probably safe to move on unless you have
Oh, I could
Jason
go on
Gross.
and on.
I know.
Jason Gross.
That's why you were very perfect for this one.
Jason Gross.
The next one is we have book to film adaptations, usually which never pan out. People don't think
Can I
that.
go pee?
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh Christ.
No
I
peeing
let you
on
Rick
the
behind
couch.
Thank you.
Oh, it's right in the back. You have to go now. We have a potty break.
No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
There's only one restroom, so it's easy.
Yeah.
We just have one last question and then anything else. It's questions.
Oh, yeah.
So we're gonna talk.
Go ahead.
Might as well bring it up. Then we'll
He'll catch up.
Well, you could go first.
We could do that, yes,
We'll
yes.
talk about whatever anyway.
Yeah, that's quite
With a
true.
plug.
Book to film adaptations, they never usually stand up to what they're supposed to be, like Hunger Games and things like that. People don't always like as much as the we also have a lot of remakes coming out. And then there was the big obsession about Ben Affleck taking on the role of Batman. And when you see how everybody obsesses over all of these things, I just simply want to know if, do you think Hollywood is missing the creative link and there's in a search for an economically stable, sure bet that will make money?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not your turn on.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's such a strange topic, and I do, depending on the project, I change my opinion 100%. Because there are some books that I think were horrible, but the movie is the only reason I read the book, and vice versa, obviously. But like, there's some wildly successful movies and wildly successful book. Like, I'll throw myself out there, is getting through the Lord of the Rings books. I still have not finished reading those, but I love the movies. You know, however many endings they have, I absolutely love them. So on that topic, yeah. But then there are other topics that I love the book, and there's no way that movie could have ever done that book justice. And I learned over the years to start thinking about them as two completely different projects. It's not the same. Like The Crow, I love the graphic novel, I guess, The Crow. Great, I saw the movie, and I remember the first time watching it was okay, and then I started thinking about it and thinking how horrible it was, because there was nothing like it. Then I watched it again just as on its own merit, just on its own, and not compare it. Don't compare it to the book, and I liked it again. And I think that's, a lot of people will, well, let's compare it to this, or like the True Blood series is nothing at all like, and you have to completely divorce yourself from the two properties, or you drive yourself crazy trying to figure out why did they do that, they should have done that. And so, I don't know, I honestly, I think people should just lighten up, really, is what it comes down to.
Thank you, because I'm like, I like remakes, and you know, this is not all of them, but I treat.
We used to freak out over remakes when I was younger. I have to say, when I was younger, it's like, how dare they take this and destroy it, and then who's the one, Steinbeck's the one that said they absolutely did nothing. My book's right there on the shelf. They didn't ruin it. It's right there for anybody that wants to pick it up and read it, or anybody that wants to see the original Halloween. You can see it. It's not taken away. However, I do think sometimes some of the movies that are made as remakes, or just using the title, really do kind of spit in the fans' faces.
Well, part of it is marketing too.
Well, yeah.
Because you have the filmmaker who comes out and makes the mistake of talking about a remake that might mislead you on what the remake is actually is.
Yeah.
Especially with Dawn of the Dead, where they came out and said, oh yeah, it's not going to take place in a mall for most of the movie.
When then I argued, why even bother calling it Dawn of the Dead?
That's
I think
what-
it was a decent zombie movie.
That's what I said in the review of Dawn of the Dead remake. I said, you call them crazy fucking zombies, I have no problem
Then it's
with
gone.
it.
But you call it Dawn of the Dead because whoever came up with it, or whoever decided to do it, and I'm a James Gunn fan, so I like him, so that's great. But whoever decided, hey, let's remake Dawn of the Dead, but let's take everything about the original that people like and get rid of it and remake it our own way. Well, that's great, but then don't call it Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
And I always go back to, I love Romeo and Juliet, I love the book. And when they made West Side Story, which is the same story, and they took it almost scene for scene from it, they called it West Side Story, they didn't call it Romeo and Juliet. They did that a few years later, which I still have this day have not seen because I'm just...
By the way, I enjoyed
Mad
West
about
Side Story.
I
You
love
can
West
believe
Side
that?
Story. I believe it.
You're breathing fatigue.
Sam, do you want me to raise a question for you right here?
Sure, please.
All right. Well, we're just we're pretty much discussing book to film adaptations, like remakes, and how people kind of freak out about Hollywood. I mean, are they missing the creative mark? I mean, in the search for something that's economically stable, to sort of show that on money.
There's some truth to that. I think these days, I don't think remakes are looked upon as bad as they were maybe a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Because Hollywood, they didn't just put their toe in the water. They just said, hey, what's the movie we can remake this week? And part of the problem, like we brought up Dawn of the Dead, was it just why didn't you just change the title? Honest to God.
True. I thought Fright Night they should have done the same thing.
Fright Ida the
Yeah.
I know.
The first one was delightful, the second one.
Yeah, they should have changed
Yeah,
it.
let's, yeah, I'm gonna
Yeah.
pretend you didn't say Fright Night. It just, but to bring up other ones, I Spit on Your Grave remake.
Yeah.
I thought I would hate it, and I enjoyed it. Carrie's been remade 4 times at this point. Is there a
I am
point to
ready
even
to see
being remade at this point?
Well, the next one, I've seen the trailer. It
It
looks like it hews closer to the original with Sissy Spacek
Yeah.
than anything else.
But it's like, it's, you know, between 4 remakes and Carrie 2, The Rage, it's like really.
Yeah.
But honestly, it just, because if you think about it, you talk to a horror fan, some of their favorite movies. Bring up John Carpenter's The Thing. It's a remake. But the sad part is about that remake, it is actually much closer to the original source material than the original Thing from Another World ever was. If you go back and want to read the story, it's all the characters in there are in the original story, which is really cool. And I think that a lot of people don't actually know about that.
Well, that was how I Am Legend too. It's from a Mega Man from the it's like 4.
Yeah,
Feet
and
into
the sad part is, once they got to the Will Smith version of it, it shouldn't have been made. It's basically what it came down to, because they were just so far off of what it should have been. And it was like, really, you know, you shouldn't even thought about doing this. But again, remakes, The Fly. The Fly remake, David Cronenberg's The Fly with Jeff Goldblum is amazing. It's just unbelievable. And the sad part is the one with Vincent Price. Even at the time it was made, as cool as it was for some of the older people who had seen it at the time it came out, it was still kind of like, I don't know, cheesy. Even at that time it came out, The Fly.
Vincent Price was cheesy.
Yeah, but Vincent
And it was good cheesy.
I'll tell you what though, I could watch Vincent Price sell Tilex, which you can see on YouTube. I'd watch that man do anything. It just, he was awesome. He became the character. It just, I think remakes are a little more accepted. My only problem with remakes, it seems like the safe thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can't come up with the movie, hey, let's go remake Piranha. Well, Piranha 3D wasn't bad, but the problem was Piranha Double D was pure garbage.
Too many other inserts.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things. It's like sometimes you go to the well too often, and I think that's what it comes down to. Even though I've accepted some remakes recently, I think it just comes down to that. You know, a lot of filmmakers go to that well just one too many times, and it's just try to come up with something different. And I know, yeah, there isn't a lot of original ideas out there, but why does everybody outside the United States have such cool, ridiculous movies?
You know, movies that we saw when we were kids that they remade.
Oh, yeah.
Remade, okay. I mean, I got scared when I was a kid, you know, with these movies. And they didn't have any of the, all these special effects and all that they have now. And that's what they're doing. They're every generation, 10, 20 years, we can remake this because these people haven't seen this, because they're all young kids. And we'll add these special effects, and we'll try to throw more gore into it, and it'll be, better. So it's.
I understand your point, but my counter argument, Van Helsing. That was just a complete bag of garbage. That I'm a fan of the Universal monsters, and I really wanted to. I just felt like I needed to go strangle somebody after I watched that.
And I think that one comes down to script too.
Yeah,
there's
you're
so
right.
much sloppy.
Yeah.
It's the one that has full moons every day.
Yeah, it's like 5 days of 10 days of full moons every night.
But see, that's I enjoy the offshoots of like the Universal monsters. The original Fright Night, a beautiful vampire film.
Yeah.
Just different things that are offshoots. Bad Moon, Ginger Snaps, Dog Soldiers, offshoot of The Werewolf. Great films. Just, I love that stuff. which brings me up to, why hasn't Creature from Black Lagoon has been remade? I don't know, and I'm glad they haven't.
I had heard, yeah, that's what I've heard too.
It's, I mean, for the love of God, we've been hearing a remake of Creature for, what, 25 years now. I like, there is so much room to interpret it. And yeah, you could put special effects, as Dawn brought up, into it. But again, it just, things like that can go on forever. You could tell stories. It has depth to those monsters or killers, as we should say. You can make many, many movies to those. But like I said, remakes are a little more acceptable. But I feel if you want to make a, really put yourself, put your name out there, make something that.
How long will these remakes make it in the theaters, if not even make it in the theaters?
Well, see, I don't
They
think.
make a lot of them just to make it to the theaters.
Dawn, to be honest, I don't think it matters how long they make it in the theaters. I think the point is, they figured, hey, this is a target audience. We're going to go for this audience for 2 weekends. We make this amount of money, we're happy. We don't care what happens. In case in point, Friday the 13th remake. Was it a horrible horror movie? No. Do I hate it because it's a revision of Friday the 13th Part 1 through 4? Yes. And he has a bat cave? Yes.
I like the bat.
It drives me nuts. But the point is, they knew who the audience they were marketing to, and it goes back to the whole point. Hollywood's just making movies. Hey, we can market this, and remakes are lumped into that. We can make this movie to market it to this group of people and make this certain amount of money.
It extends to the same idea as making movies based on video games, making movies based on TV shows, doing TV shows based on movies.
The one
If
misstep.
you've got a product that you know people will buy.
Yeah. The one misstep though was Nightmare on Elm Street remake. They thought they could put anybody in that makeup, and I'm sorry, Robert Englund. If there's anybody connected to a character, a voice, just the way he moves.
I like Jack's performance.
No,
But
no. I'm sorry.
I'm fairly certain he liked it. Yeah.
I'm fairly certain I did. He's riding a motorcycle and back his hair.
I love that version of it. It is not Freddy, but let's face it. I would rather. I don't want Freddy to go and die. Robert Englund is eventually going to die, everybody.
Yes, he is.
I hate to break that to you. Okay? I would love to, them to make Friday the 13th forever, or Nightmares forever, but there was something missing to it, but I thought it was a very serious take. It harkened back to Nightmare 1, before Freddy turned into the goofball, and, I really liked the serious. I love that the story was more close to what originally it was supposed to be. I thought it was fresh. I did, yes. Yeah,
I mean, if you want me to take away,
invalid argument.
I can accept. I can understand what you're saying. I just felt that Hollywood shouldn't have said, "Hey, look, he did awesome in Watchmen. He could be Freddy Krueger." And it's just that was the way it came off of.
So why didn't they make it with a different name or title or something?
Yeah, it just then it was
because when we went to see that movie because it was called Nightmare on Elm Street, it was called Weirdo in a Hat with Claws. Well, you just still
I would have seen it.
But here's the thing with Hollywood is we're all forgetting this in this room. It's a business. It's a corporate business. We are not going to
that's why I said
we're
it
not
was
going
a
to risk
misstep.
green water if we know all of us are going to drink this clear water.
That's why I said it
We're
was
gonna
a
make it better.
misstep. I said it was a misstep. And I always like, to your point, I always like to bring up, and I always feel society is going this direction, a movie to watch, Soylent Green.
Yes.
It is not people, by the way.
I can see it happen.
Dissidents, they're not people.
The book.
I
We
believe
get really
in
mad about
that.
that. We don't want to bring that up. I get really mad about the book and that.
Wait a minute. Something recently already went there.
Yeah, something did. I know.
Something liquefied people.
Yeah.
And fed it back.
Yeah.
Oh, it was
Cloud Atlas.
Cloud Atlas
Yeah,
did it.
yeah.
They did it. Yeah, that was like that rung a bell. Yeah, the clones.
Yeah.
All the clones were fed to each other.
Yeah, to each other.
To each other.
But if
yes.
it's the business, and what I'm saying with, my thing with the remakes is you're taking the clear stuff in the bottle, and everybody loves the water, and you're gonna put different flavoring, even though it looks like it's clear, and you're marketing it as the same thing, and it tastes different, it's kind of, that's to me what they're doing, so they're kind of shooting themselves
Yeah, and
a
I
little
think
bit.
what-
That's
and I
why
think
you
what-
need these young independents that don't, follow that same script, that wanna write their own and make up, what's in their head there and make this movie that's.
I was gonna say, I think that's part of the problem, because Alexander Aja, for example, how many remakes has that guy done now?
Well, that's part of his, that's how he keeps his green card.
Well, but honestly, it was like after Hot Tension, it was like, I wanna see what this guy does, and it was just like, Hills Have Eyes, and it's just like, okay. And then it just remake.
Well,
after
what
remake.
constitutes
If you
a
take one
good
character,
remake?
Dracula,
Yes.
starts out with the Nosferatu
Yeah.
black and white silent film, goes into the Bela Lugosi 1940s, goes into the 60s, probably late 50s, early 60s, the Hammer films with Chris
Yeah.
Lee. And you go into the 70s with Bela Lugosi, or Frank Langella.
Jello, yeah.
Into the 90s with
Ariel.
and now it's going to be a TV series. So I think that
Again,
every so often, it's fine to remake.
Yeah, well, that goes back to my theory. I love the offshoots of that character. I love how, because there's depth. There is more story to be told. Some of the remakes, there isn't any more story to be told. It's just a cash in. Well, period.
That's the thing, if you're telling more of the story, if you're building the character, and I'm not talking about back to 2000, or things, I'm talking about Dallas, Gary Oldman, and Frank Langella. If you're showing the character and showing new aspect of the character, building on the character. The Dracula team, I didn't know that they were going to be doing a TV show.
Yeah, it's coming to school.
Yeah, but it's the point I was going to make. It's not a remake. It's an extension of.
Yes, it is.
It's the second volume of the
Yeah,
tale.
and you know what? And to be honest, it goes back to marketing. If they're gonna sit there, Dawn of the Dead, like I said, I hate to bring it up, but that is a prime example because they literally went and did a hard sell on this is not gonna be the '78 version of Dawn of the Dead. It's not gonna be about the mall. It's not gonna be this. And it was like, where's 75% of the movie? In the frickin' mall.
Well, when is the public gonna realize they're being lied to? If they're that dumb, they
Well,
deserve what they get.
hey, you have presidents that lie to the public every damn
If they're
day.
that dumb, they deserve what they get.
Leonard.
And it doesn't matter whether it's Democrat or Republican.
Well, the business
We're lying
decision-
every day.
the business decision behind all this came from the writer's strike in 2007. Up till 2007, all the Hollywood studios hired writers to come up with ideas all day long. And they would go to agents and go, what do your writers have as far as ideas? What came out of the agreement from the writer's strike is if you have an idea and they use it, you get a royalty. So they fired all the writers on staff, they stopped going to agents, and they started making remakes, and they didn't change the title, because if you change the title, then it's someone's idea and you have to pay them.
Yep.
If it stays the same title and makes something completely different, no one gets royalties.
Yeah, it even goes back further years ago when I think Amy was talking about it, and I think even Jason brought it up about residuals and other, how
Percentage
they
points and.
put out there. The best example, and I never knew about, was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. Ken Foray brought it up to me because I brought him a poster. Never noticed it.
Is that who told you about Devil's Rejects?
No.
Ken lies and tell me he owes me $13.
No. Everybody's name that was on the poster was misspelled. Even Jeff Berg told me the story about it.
Really?
For some reason, when the posters and merchandise first went out, it was corrected over time, but the problem was, because they originally went out and it was misspelled, they did not collect a residual on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. It doesn't matter if it made money or not, until the DVD was released. And that DVD that was released, we're talking something like 12 years after the fact. They never seen a check from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, just adding to the legacy of people not being paid for Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because Ken Foray's name was misspelled, Viggo Mortensen's name was misspelled, William Butler's name was
So you're
misspelled.
saying that was the
Butler was misspelled.
New Line Cinema. Yeah, New Line Cinema deliberately misspelled names, because even Jeff Burr, he told me, he said, look,
He didn't know what name to take off of it.
yeah, Jeff Burr, because Jeff Burr was brought into it very late, very rushed, and said honestly he was just proud for it to even be out there because he felt that he could have done more with it because of how rushed he was and what he was trying to do. He just didn't have the money, he didn't have the time, because he wasn't even the original person attached to direct the film. He was brought into it like 2 weeks into production in order to get it finished. And Jeff Burr told me, basically, when we did an interview with him for our podcast, Bloodbaths and Boomsticks, he did not want it on the podcast. It was the only thing he didn't want anybody to know about. He actually knew New Line Cinema was doing this at the time, just so they wouldn't have to pay people residuals. And it goes back to the fact, Hollywood being Hollywood, if they could save a buck somewhere, they're gonna do it. And that was how. But life, Jason.
Some remakes and everything.
I mean, here, the thing with me, and I should probably stand alone when I say this, is I enjoy a movie, whether it's good or bad. I walk away from the experience going, either I'm entertained by a bad movie, or I walk away and even more entertained by a good movie. So, a remake, I take it as if it's a new movie. I like when they change things up a little bit. I don't want another 1978 Dawn of the Dead. I don't like anything fast, a zombie, call it infected or whatever. I don't know if they were zombies or they rage viruses or
28
whatever.
weeks later.
I thought that was different. I thought it was cool, but I still think it was survivors in a mall dealing with it, and they had to go somewhere. In the end, instead of a helicopter, they go to a boat,
Which they get eaten.
yeah, which is cool. So like, wow, like yeah, we kind of like, why did I even watch this? I like that feeling, like this was all for nothing. Oh, I love that ending, you know? Oh, that's the best! That's the best! That's the best! You're like,
me a reason.
if you're not sweating like what? Just
Didn't even wait till they got hungry.
slap.
They can wait for
I need that monster comes to the window and it's like, I don't know.
I just enjoyed they made the Punisher an asshole in the last 30 seconds of the movie.
But
That made me happy.
I'll take each and every remake or book adaptation for what it is as a standalone piece.
Except for Psycho.
Wow.
I would go
Oh.
Psycho.
Oh.
Shot for shot.
They should not redo Labyrinth
Oh, I
or
thought
Natural
you
Born
were talking
Killers.
You know what?
Have you watched Bates
But you
Motel?
combine them.
Labyrinth, love it.
Have you seen Bates Motel on A&E?
No, I haven't watched that.
I've watched it.
It's
I have.
fantastic.
Is it?
It's very good. Yeah.
I like it. You're right. It is fantastic. But I don't know how to feel about it since they've already kind of tackled this part of Norman Bates basically in Psycho 4, New Beginning, or
This is
whatever it
like an idea, or going towards taking the core characters from the Robert Bloch book, which was fat and light Peter, but exploring the character of Norman Bates before.
Oh yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Norman Bates the Psycho.
I think the biggest problem with the Bates Motel show, and it goes with any, even besides the Psycho remake, which is obvious, but the problem is Anthony Perkins is gone.
Yeah.
And he made that character his. It was kind of like Robert Englund with Freddy Krueger. It's kind of like no one can match what he did. He basically, you know that character, you know the face, you know the expression. He's just able to turn it on. And the best thing about that was, the best example about Anthony Perkins was, I put it up on my Facebook page quite a few times now. There's a Raisin Nut brand, I think it is, a Raisin Oat Nut brand commercial out there that Anthony Perkins did. And he's talking to his mother from Psycho.
Oh no!
And he's like, look mother, I'm eating oatmeal.
Oh.
And he opens up the drawer to grab a spoon and just big ass butcher knife there. And it just, the way they played that commercial was perfect,
Very
but just
disturbing.
his expression, it was just, I would eat that cereal all the time because that son of a bitch just sold it to me.
I don't think any actor that's gonna do a remake should try to be like that first actor, because nobody can.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
They
You know,
can't.
you should bring your own
That kind of
little.
iconic role.
You
yeah.
can't.
Like
Yeah.
your Matt Damon.
They
Yeah,
tried
oh,
to.
yeah, Ben Affleck.
That, I'm sorry, I know they don't look the same, I always get those
I did
two.
not like Batman's voice. That was my biggest thing.
They're the
so,
same.
I mean, everybody's.
I didn't like
Johnny Depp.
I- see,
No one has
I,
to talk about remakes.
yeah.
I'm having a little. I mean, remakes, I mean, it's, I'm like him, it doesn't matter to me. Something being remade, I enjoyed the first one, I'm gonna watch the second one. I say, well, it's good or bad. I mean, I really don't have that much of a
Maybe not this one.
problem with remakes, no.
Well, I like.
If it's that good of a remake, it's gonna stand on its own.
Precisely.
My Bloody
The Thomas
Valentine.
Crown Affair is one I loved. I didn't see the Steve McQueen version. I saw the Pierce Brosnan version, and I was thoroughly entertained in that. With that,
What do you think after you saw the Steve McQueen version?
I actually was a little disappointed in the Steve McQueen version.
The Blob.
Well, once again, that was done with movie in them days, which
It was a lot slicker in its production, sure. Yeah.
there's always a different, they're always trying to make it a little bit better.
Well, I mean, I personally, I don't mind them all the time. I think that the few that I wouldn't want to see remade are Labyrinth and Natural Born Killers. They're two of my favorites. They're like classics to me. I do like seeing creative new concepts like Elysium or something that's like an after.
Chris Seaver's already made Labyrinth.
What? I heard that someone
You,
is not
he
there.
stole the David Bowie scene.
Oh no! Like, who are they
Where he's
gonna put in
singing
there?
to the
Who's gonna be
puppets.
the David Bowie?
And it's that movie.
Dance Magic.
I spit on your grave.
Spit chew on your grave?
Yeah, I spit chew on your
You
grave.
can't count that as remaking some
Oh,
He's
no.
a thief.
I almost pissed myself laughing at that scene because he literally has the main character dressed to the T as David Bowie's character.
Oh no!
And he's singing to hands with socks on.
Oh,
And I was like, just the balls.
Glad I didn't.
Just the balls to even try something like
But
that.
he's the one who did Taint Like.
Yeah, but it was funny because it was, the sad part was, it was a song about rape. It was like,
Jesus,
of
that
course
is
it was.
worse.
And if you're gonna go in a complete, if you're gonna just, not just blur the line, but blow it up,
Yeah.
it was like, this is the direction you need to go. And
That's
it's just,
more
I laughed.
Parody then.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
laughed.
yeah.
I laughed so hard in my life when I seen it.
I love
Yeah.
Well, now that is the end of our questions. So if anyone has any questions or
What about
anything
Ben
they want to discuss,
He's not here.
He doesn't have it.
Yeah.
You didn't come, did you?
Everybody was so angry about that. That's
Piss
all.
on that dude.
I wasn't either.
Not me.
Yeah,
I don't care.
I couldn't believe
It's
how
great.
Facebook
See what happens.
exploded with.
I know, I don't understand. Well, I guess when people love a character though, sometimes
That's because of
they.
Daredevil.
Yeah.
He's so
Well-
awful in Daredevil.
Yes, he was.
The only problem I have with Daredevil was the contacts thing, and that goes back to my details thing. If you have millions and billions of dollars that you're making a movie, and I'm really exaggerating a lot today, but you have all this money and they do a close up on his eyes, and you can see his contact rim around his eyes, and I'm like, really?
You
Okay.
couldn't
Because
blue,
you
you
could
couldn't
use that.
blue screen that.
And
or-
that's, but for some reason, that colors my entire
He was
opinion
nowhere
of the
near
entire
as bad as
film.
Colin Farrell.
Oh, no.
He's nowhere near
Well,
as bad as Colin
let's
Farrell
be fair,
from
everyone is awful.
Innocence.
Thank you, thank you.
I don't care. I'll see it if I like it.
The only
Good. If I
acceptable
don't,
thing he
yeah.
was ever in was the Total Recall remake, which
No.
I didn't like the movie, but it was kind of like I'm watching the movie and I was like, man, this is really missing Michael Ironside through the whole thing.
But it had Walter White at the end. So
Yeah,
you
but
know,
it was
Colin
like-
Farrell beat up a guy twice his age.
It doesn't matter. It was Michael Ironside. He made Total Recall. He was. It's just that man. I could watch him. He's like Rucker Hauer. I could watch that man in anything.
Battleship.
Howard.
Oh, no, not Battleship.
Rucker Hauer's brilliant.
X-Men First Class.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. LJ's Books is awesome, so if you want to like buy some books, Rickert Beagle.
Can I make 2 very quick announcements? That would be the first one. Well, now I only
Oh,
need to make
sorry.
one announcement. The name of the store is changing, so if you come by and the store name is different, it's still me. It's still the same store inside. The other announcement is there's a program called All Hallows Read, and if you don't know anything about it, you can go online and just Google All Hallows Read, and Neil Gaiman, who started the whole idea, will explain it to you. The idea is during the month of October, you go out and you find a horror novel, and you hand it to someone who hasn't read horror before. If it's a little kid, find them a good spooky little kid story. If it's someone who's maybe a little timid, maybe find them something a little gentle. If it's somebody who loves gory stuff, find them something gross. But because I think the idea is so fantastic, what I do in the store is for the month of October, if you come back and visit me and say, I'm here for the All Hallows Read, I will let you pick out 2 horror mass market paperbacks. Or if you're not really sure what you want, although I think everyone in this room can probably find 2 things on their own, I will be happy to pick out 2 for you. One of those books is for you, and one of those books is to hand to somebody else. So come back and visit me in October.
And everybody, please give Chris a hand for allowing us to even have this.
Happy to. You guys
He's real great at pass the blame
And
off on
thank you
him.
all of you for coming too.
Thank you for inviting us.
Now Dawn will dance.
Yay!